Happy hump day, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Brought to you today and every day by our friends at Big Willie's, 1717 South Main. We've got tournament basketball happening today in the Big 12 Conference. If you're looking for a place to go check out the new floor, which we're already seeing some tweets about, you want to watch all the games, you're a degenerate who likes to maybe play the ponies on all those games, wonderful. Big Willie's, 1717 South Main. They're going to have every game that you could possibly need from now until mid-April plus. Incredible food menu, great drink specials every single day, under $4 for the drink special every day, which if you are an adult who likes to imbibe, that is a screaming deal. That was a screaming deal back in 2000. Nobody does it in 2026. Patrick and Michelle do because they're trying to make it a place that you go back to over and over again. Tell them OC sent you. They're going to hook you up. They're going to take care of you like they do me. Big Willie's at 1717 South Main. All right, coming off a weird night in Utah sports, the Utah Mammoth had a big road win. All right, we're glad. We're happy about that. That's wonderful. We're pleased with that situation, immensely so. The Big 12 Conference is inebriated and doesn't know what it needs to do with itself in basketball. BYU with another disastrous loss. Utah finished out their season at home last night, senior night. Just a really, really rough game for the Utes. Just a really bad showing again. And I know that you got tournament basketball and you're probably just wanting to get the bad taste out of your mouth and finish this thing up. 92-78, falling to the Colorado Buffaloes, who doubled you up in the first half. Still outplayed you in the final moments, but doubled you up in the first half. And that is, by the way, not a good team. They're an okay team. They're a marginal team. Terrence Brown, once again, led the Utes at all scorers in this one. He had 26 points. Don McHenry, 19 points. There's just not enough support. There's not enough help. There's not enough of the kind of basketball that Alex Jensen needs for this team to be able to play as he continues as the head coach at the University of Utah. And there's no question in my mind that it's going to get turned around. It's just going to be maybe a more complicated, a little bit slower process than what we originally anticipated. So that's tough. And look, it's time for us. We have to acknowledge how odd it is, how off-putting it is for some fans when you're trotting people out for senior night at the Huntsman Center or at Fog Allen or wherever. And a lot of the people haven't been there for more than a year. If they've been there, maybe they've been there 2 years. It's a rarity in college sports. I'm still trying to make sure that this is properly sourced, but this is from a guy at CBS Sports. He's a national college basketball writer for CBS Sports. He's a 24/7 insider, follows college hoops very, very closely. Isaac Trotter put out a mind-blowing tweet for me. There are 22 high major scholarship players who will celebrate senior night having played at just one place. For Mississippi State's Sean Jones Jr., and Isaac covers the SEC closely, he's the only SEC senior to finish where he started. The Big 12, according to this graphic from Isaac Trotter, has 5 total players in the entire conference. In my opinion, college basketball's best and deepest conference. Only 5 guys started where they finished. The Big 10 leads with 10. Big 12 has 5. The Big East has 3. The ACC has 3. The SEC has 1. Now, he's only talking about what we call the Power 5, right? There's only a Power 4 in college football now. The Big East is still a power conference in basketball. so they get to be part of this conversation. 22 players finishing where they started in big-time college hoops. And, I mean, no disparaging remark to the Utah State Aggies, to the Weber State Wildcats, to whomever. Fill in the blank. Maybe you're a big fan of Liberty. You know what we're talking about when we're talking about power conference athletic departments and power conference schools. And right now, there is an absolute dearth, an absence of individuals who really represent those schools all the way through. We knew this was a problem, all right? We knew this was like a thing that probably at some point needs to be talked about more. I will admit to my own ignorance here. I had no idea we were talking about 22 total in a landscape of hundreds and hundreds of players. That we're talking about 22 who from freshman to senior year stayed at the same power school. Porter Larson, by the way, is filling in for James Peterson, who's on daddy duty today. And Porter, I see you in there kind of shaking your heads. And
it's absurd.
Did you know this was the number?
I didn't know that was the number. If you would have had me guess, I would have guessed a lot higher than that. And that's even considering the fact that, I'm aware of this issue that we're talking about. But 22, that's it?
In the country, total, in the landscape. Now, maybe that number gets higher when you go down the ladder a little bit. When you're talking about
definitely
Wichita State and you're talking about Utah State and you're talking about Northwest Dakota, whatever, there's probably more there. But the harsh reality in those situations also is that they face a different kind of crisis than this, where if you are Utah State's best player, you're heavily incentivized to then go play for BYU, Kansas, Texas Tech, Houston, Oregon, whoever's willing to spend the money that Utah State, I'm sure, would love to, but quite literally cannot, right? So while a roster like Utah State or a roster like Weber State might have guys, you have 5 in your whole conference. We got 3 on this team that stayed from freshman year to senior year. And then you have to say, okay, were they your best players? No. Were they your team captains? Well, maybe by default because they were here long enough. Were they the guys that you as a coach, if, by the way, you're the coach who's been there the whole time, because turnover there is also a problem, were those the guys that you wanted to attach your future, your resume to? And the sad reality is, well, probably not. And then you say, okay, so you got 3 or 5 or however. What's the rest of your roster made up of? Well, the rest of my roster is made up of the guys who didn't stay all 4 years at the Big 12 school or were academically ineligible after a couple years at the ACC school or weren't the high school – as a high school player, we thought they were something, and in the Big Ten they turned out not to be that, so then we got them. And, Coach, do you like that? Again, we're talking to now the mid-major coaches, the lower-level coach. Is that what you wanted your roster to be built on? And almost invariably, the answer will be, well, it's not great. It's not ideal. But we love the talent. We love the kids. We love giving the kids opportunities when the opportunity doesn't work out somewhere else. And all that is true, and these coaches are doing the best they can. But, man, what a mess in college hoops.
And this is a bigger issue in football than it is in basketball, but I'll just add a caveat here. There's also a pretty healthy amount of players who, they aren't happy with their lot. They aren't happy with their playing time. And they say, hey, I'm going to transfer. I'm going to go play somewhere. They enter the portal, and there are more players in the portal than there are scholarships available across the country.
Yes.
And they don't find a home.
Yeah, we get that number at the end of the year in football, where it's just like we had 3,500 guys enter the portal this year, and 2,700 found a new home.
Right.
You're like, wait a minute, the math there isn't math. So you're telling me, and look, not everyone who enters the portal is a scholarship player, but let's say that the majority is, or let's just say that that, the percentage is about 75% of all players, and that percentage is going up, right? About 75% of all players in college football are scholarship players. And if you take 75% of the 800 guys who didn't find a new home, that's 600 people who walked away from having their education paid for thinking they were going to find greener grass, and then unfortunately they didn't.
And a lot of them are getting like advice from someone who's, let's say, incentivized to try to get them to a different place, to try to get them somewhere that might make them money, regardless of if that is a place that they'll find a better landing spot. It's as you said, man, it's a mess.
And by the way, I say this, I feel like I have to throw it out and qualify all of these statements because I am a person who transferred during their college career
for a bunch of money too.
for dozens of cents. No, I transferred because I wanted to play. I came to that stark and cold realization that your ego never wants to have to survive when you're 20 years old, that like, hey man, you might think you're good enough to play here, but these coaches don't, and they never will. So you need to find somewhere you can go. That's a hard thing. I still don't like talking about it. It was 20-something years ago. You know what I mean?
I think if you would have stayed at Utah, you would have found a way.
I wish that's true. I wish that's true. I'm sure I could have run down on kickoff a couple times.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. All right.
Are you telling me that Jay Hill didn't back up the Brinks truck?
Can I tell you the truth? I don't think Jay Hill knew my name until after I was gone.
He did after you were there, though, when he reunited with you at good old Weber State.
And look, it's all wonderful. It's great. It all comes out in the wash. It's fine. I'm so fortunate that it worked out that way for myself. You know what I mean? There's so many of these players that are just like, again, it's not something I just want to be like, these kids these days don't know how to suffer. They don't know how to go through adversity. All right. I suffered. I went through adversity, and I came to a realization that it wasn't going to work.
Right.
Not all these transfers are that. All right. Because if all transfers were that, we would be talking about several hundred players who started the same place that they finished. If the only people who transferred were the people who it really isn't going to work out, you're not going to get on the floor, you're not going to get on the field, you're not going to get on the diamond, whatever it is, 22 players in Power 5 basketball finishing where they started is embarrassing for everyone who's been part of this decision-making process. Everyone. The coaches that pushed for it, the players, the player reps, the Ed O'Bannons and the Ramogi Humas and all these guys are just like, we need these players to have the rights of anyone else. Like, I understand, but you now have to look at the results, the fruits of your labor, and be a little bit cringy. I didn't anticipate this. I didn't think this is what we were asking for. And you could probably live in denial and say, but this is not what we were asking for.
Right.
The failure to predict that this was a possible outcome is exactly that. It's a failure by all the people, all the attorneys, all of the player reps that were just like, I want open transfers. I've told this story several times. I was doing Sirius XM radio. I was hosting a show. Rick Neuheisel happened to be the guy that I was hosting the show with. And I was just like, I think everyone should be allowed to transfer penalty-free for like one time in college. And he said, absolutely not. Keep that genie in the bottle. I was like, what are you talking about, Coach? He said, if you allow even that, it's going to be a free-for-all and a mess. I said, no. Because players, when they're starters at a certain place, they're happy there. I promise you more than 22 guys were starters at their previous school and decided to go somewhere else. I didn't fully anticipate, and I didn't want open transfer. A good question came in the comments of Isaac Trotter's initial tweet, which, again, gives you the number 22. I'm going to keep hammering that home. 22 high major scholarship players played at one spot. celebrating senior night. Really good question came in. Tell me how many guys played at 4 places in 4 years, or 4 places in 5 years, or 5 places in 6 years, like the cat who just walked off the USC court and never went back.
Probably more than 22.
It's dozens at least. It's probably over 100. And again, this is college hoops, so the numbers are different than in college football where you've got rosters of over 100. But I want this number in football now.
I'll play devil's advocate because I am kind of an open transfer guy.
Okay.
But there's caveats there.
Yeah.
I don't think that a law or a rule from the NCAA, especially from the NCAA, should prohibit a kid from going to school and living where he wants to live.
Fair.
However, if you engage now in an economy where contracts are signed, you hire an agent, you go out and make money on the NIL market, you go out and make money with that brand on your chest, that's when things change, right? So I don't think we should necessarily penalize the kid who goes to Snow College and then wants to transfer to Utah State and then doesn't work out there, so he transfers to Utah Valley. You know, he's not making $1 bazillion doing that. He's just trying to find a home, right? However, the kid who is committing to a school, signing a contract, and then going back on that because another school offers him $1 million, $1.5 million, and then that school all of a sudden doesn't come through on that deal, and there's nothing in place. There's no guardrails, right? Leaders see around corners. This is what we talked about. There is currently no guardrails in place for these contract disputes, for the NCAA or any body to be a mediator in that. So we see the Rob Wright situation where he signed a contract to play at Baylor. Now he's playing at BYU, and if that didn't go well, and maybe BYU didn't come to the agreement that he thought he was getting, who is there to go through that process? You hire lawyers and you sue each other. That's where we're at, and that's not where college sports should be. The
winners here in all of this are attorneys. The attorneys and their billable hours are super, super undefeated here. And I'm with you. You bring up really, really good points. What we're actually concerned about is the top end of this market. And that's why I think Isaac targeted power basketball, right? He's not talking about the Utah State and the Weber State kids. He's talking about guys who are at SEC schools and ACC schools, and they are participating in this economy at some level. There are very few guys now on a Utah roster that are scholarship players who all they have is a scholarship. There are very few guys at BYU who are at BYU on scholarship, and all they have is a scholarship. A lot of these guys get a little extra here, they get a little stipend there, and it doesn't have to be $7 or $8 million. I'm not talking about the AJ DeBonsa thing. I think your point is well made. If you're participating in this economy, there has to be some kind of guardrail in place. And unfortunately, the adults in the room have failed that. Even the people who thought they were doing what was right for the players didn't fully anticipate what a mess they were creating for players. There's going to be real-world ramifications, by the way. Like, our actual economy, our government, our education system, or whatever is going to be populated sooner than later with people who don't know what it's like to just grind through the bad year at the job and stay there. It's not only athletes. I get it. There's plenty of students that make up but the leaders of our country have traditionally, in a lot of ways, been people who at least have some level of background in sport. And if those same people are still elevating themselves into these positions we're talking about, and we're not going to get into politics because yikes, but like,
sure.
But I mean, you're now going to have the regional manager at Enterprise Rent-A-Car who just walks off the job one day because he doesn't like it anymore.
That I'm not going to go into it. That's too specific, but you don't want to get into politics. Where are you flying this weekend?
Yeah, well, I was supposed to be flying through Qatar or Qatar, and guess what? You can't now.
Yeah.
My original flight plan, Salt Lake to JFK, JFK to Doha, Doha to Entebbe, Uganda. Guess where you can't go through right now?
Yep. Okay.
Doha. Anyway, back to what we're talking about here.
Not to derail you.
The thing that is going to save is the wrong word, but the thing that is going to disincentivize this, stop this, is that you are going to have to give to people, hey, I'm giving you a scholarship, and I'm also giving you 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand, million, whatever. But this is not a one-year deal.
Right.
This is a multi-year contract. And if you're not going to fulfill it, you're going to pay me back. Brendan Sorsby is being sued right now by the University of Cincinnati. He's in Lubbock, Texas. They got spring ball starting next week. He's going to be slinging the ball around. He's going to be doing his thing. Brendan Sorsby is supposed to be the top quarterback in the Big 12 next year. Cincinnati says, great, cool. You owe us $1 million.
Right. And that one, that's when we're getting real crazy because Texas Tech has the means to do so. They kind of knew that. They knew that was coming.
Sure.
Right? Cincinnati had kind of said, hey, Brendan, we had a deal here. And there's yeah, we know. Texas Tech's gonna handle that.
So even then, it's probably not super enforceable, and your agent and your lawyers never.
It's a buyout, though. Then we're in the adult space.
Yeah, and now we're talking about things that actually kind of make sense. But that is the only way to get this number from 22 back to like 200. And I hate that that's the only way, but it is the only way. By the way, Richie Saunders is one of these 22, right?
Yeah.
Richie?
He would be.
Jonathan Tavernari has come on several times and talked about what a dying breed he is. And I nodded along and said, you're absolutely right, Jonathan. He is a dying breed. My bad, JT. I had no idea how accurate that statement was. If I'm correct, he is one of 5 players in all of Big 12 basketball who started and finished at the same place. And part of me loves this free market system because in the world that you're about to live in when you graduate school, you can go work wherever you want. And what you do is you go work for the place that's paying you the most. And you go work for the place that has the best benefits. And that's what these kids are doing. They're participating in the grown-up world before they get to the grown-up world. But also, the grown-up world is going to come slamming into their faces when they realize, like, oh, wait, I actually have to carry through these commitments. I signed this paper. That means now, it used to be 1 year. That means now I got to stay for 2 years. Now I got to stay for 3 years. Now I got to stay for 4 years. It's happened. Some schools have done this, right? Tennessee gave Nico Iamaleava, gave him a 4-year deal.
Right.
And then he's like, nah, I want more money. And they're like, no, kick rocks, kid. You agreed. And they didn't come after him for more when he left. He wanted more. He wanted to renegotiate. And they were just like, no, you're not good enough. And he wasn't to be demanding more money, but the market had changed. And so they, thankfully, stood solid and said, no, you agreed to play for us for $2 million per year. We're going to give you $2 million per year. And he's like, fine, I'll go test the market. And what did the market do to him? It sent him all the way down to the 11th best team in the Big Ten.
Got to live in L.A., though.
He did get to live in L.A. and still make good money, though.
Yeah, I mean that is the adult part of it, right? Where you are no longer a 18-year-old high school player. You're in the real world. This is a billions of dollar economy that you now have to operate as such. And yeah, you'll have, I hope, more Richie Saunders in the future when some of this gets together. And guys like that, when they're done, they will have that experience and they'll be able to go on and run the largest potato dynasty in the world.
The Tater Tot King. Look, I know I have a tendency to do this. Be like, well, I teeter at the edge of the slippery slope all the time. I walk at the edge of that. And I acknowledge it's there.
You're an habitual line stepper.
And I like to be like, hey, this is bad for all of us. This beyond sports can be bad for all of us. And I go into these weird tangents in my own head and even on air where people are just like, what are you talking about? Like This is college hoops. It has nothing to do with the company I'm going to work for in 10 years. I still don't believe that's true, right? Here's where it will matter, and here's where franchises have to make decisions. We're seeing this sort of attitude develop and be cultivated, by the way, from the time kids are 10 years old or sooner, that you are more important than the team, you are more important than the program, you are more important, and your priorities, your bottom line is the only thing for you to care about, is the only thing you need to worry about. And look, I don't fully disagree with that in a lot of cases. But we've got Gordy Chiesa in studio for the next hour, and it is going to have ramifications for these people at the pro level, right? Because the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL hockey, they are populated with GMs, personnel departments, team owners, coaches who don't want that attitude. They want your talent, but they don't want the attitude that the only thing that matters is my satisfaction and my bank account. They still want team players. Now, they will deal with a whole lot of you-know-what if you're talented enough. But these organizations still want people who have some sense of what loyalty is supposed to be, who have some sense of the greater good, some sense of what the team, and they're willing to pay for it, and those contracts and those collective bargaining agreements are in place to do so, and that is what's absent in college sports right now. But when you go from that system, from the free-for-all system, into one where now your tantrum doesn't mean a dang thing, except that the people around you aren't going to like you anymore, you could throw your tantrum. It's like, cool, man, you're still here for 4 more years. You signed the contract. You sure you want to throw that tantrum?
Right.
I'm going to go out and demand a trade. All right, have fun. You've just devalued yourself and ruined your relationship with this entire organization and potentially all the other NBA teams out there.
And you speak of like NFL GMs, that process before they draft a player, before they make a multi-million-dollar investment that they have to now insure for life, that they have to do all these things for, before they make that investment, dude, they ask you like what cartoons you watched on Nickelodeon, right? Yes. You don't think they're going to ask why you played at 3 schools in 4 years and all your coaches are hesitant to give positive answers about you? That's the real world we're talking about. Yes, in the job market, I could go take a job right now at the other station, right?
Yeah.
And then I could go and move on to another one and another one. But at some point, that next hiring person, they're going to be like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Why can't you get along with everyone? Now, that's a different topic of conversation, but I'm here. I'm staying here for now.
I mean, so Pat McAfee has been like this gold standard of personal economy in the sports media space. No one can say he's anything but a great success. But there's a lot of people in the industry who are waiting for it to fall apart at ESPN because it has everywhere else.
Yeah.
Because and he is so hyper talented and such a big draw that everybody's willing to assume that risk. That's not every basketball player. That's certainly not every football player. There's way too many people who are not talented enough to act the way that they act. And that's not just in sports, by the way. We all know these people in real life, right? You've all gone on dates with the man or woman that you're just like, hey, you are not attractive or appealing or interesting enough to be acting this way. You don't realize what you're doing right now because you don't have an accurate self-image of how you can get away with talking to the waiter that way and think I'm just going to ignore it because you're that handsome or you're that pretty.
And you're not a very good punter either.
Got some specifics?
Just Pat.
All right. Got to take a quick one here. Sean O'Connell Show continues with Gordy Chiesa. He's going to be with us for an hour or so. He'll have some thoughts on the upcoming NCAA tournament. He'll have some thoughts on the Big 12 basketball tournament. And most importantly, he's our resident NBA guru, so he's going to have his thoughts on the association. Stay tuned. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. We're lucky enough to have Gordy Chiesa in studio with us today. And you might be driving around in your car going, wait, it's Wednesday. That's right. Thursday, Utah women's basketball, Big 12 women's tournament underway. So Utah will be playing the winner of BYU and Houston, who tip off just a little bit later today. We're going to be talking with Gavin Peterson, by the way, ahead of his Big 12 matchup. He doesn't know who he's going to play yet. So that means my show tomorrow goes until 12:15. 12:15 pregame with Tyson Ewing and company starts right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. And because of that, I'm not going to go a week during basketball season only chatting with Gordy Chiesa for like 10 minutes. So he was kind enough to come in studio with us today, brought to you by Aladdin Industries, and we're happy to have him. Gordy, how are you?
Sean, I'm doing well. Thank you.
You were listening to me rant about that crazy stat we pulled out. 22 players are finishing their college basketball careers the same place they started. That's in Power 5 basketball. That's in major conference basketball. The number's much lower than I ever thought it was. I could have done the work myself and figured it out, but I didn't because I'm lazy. But, it's a drastic comparison to where we were at 5 years ago in college hoops, 10 years ago in college hoops. It'd be like, hey, there's 22 players who didn't finish out the same place they started. And now that's totally flipped on its head.
Very much, yeah. It's troubling. And that's the new NCAA, and that's the new, as far as with the NIL money, people transferring all the time. Also, there's no more, as far as, Sean, building up a culture. It's almost like each year your team almost like changes. So there's, the expression, well, our DNA is based on this. And with all those guys leaving all the time, there's really no almost like senior leadership, which means that basically the head coach of that university is also the head coach and the team captain. Because there's nobody there as a senior or a junior, been in a program for 2, 3, 4 years that tells the younger players, this is how we do things. And that's troubling also.
It's funny because, Kyle Whittingham talked about this ad nauseum for the last 2 or 3 years. And we were talking about a football team that had basically a 50-50 split, right? Half the bodies on that roster were new every year. Now, some other places, they brought in as many as 70, 75 new players. For Utah, it was like slightly less than 50-50 in most years. And even in that case, where you have 50 guys that were there last year and probably 20 or 30 that have been there for multiple years, he talked about how difficult it is to establish a culture, especially for a program where culture really was everything, right? It's not we didn't get the most talented guys out of high school. It's not we're paying the most. It's we do things a certain way, and lamented the fact like it's harder and harder to integrate these new guys because there's fewer old guys to tell them this is how we do things. In college basketball, that was with 20 to 50 guys who did know. Now we're talking about teams in the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC, the Big East, the SEC, who don't have even one of those guys. So culture, is team culture now just like a made-up catchphrase that doesn't apply in college hoops?
It applies not as dramatically as it once did. So, for example, as you're talking right now, I'm thinking about a school that's not in the Power 5, but they could be national champions almost every year. They contend. That's Gonzaga.
Sure.
So Gonzaga, teams like that they're not, because they don't have football, either is the Big East, though, but Big East is as far as a major basketball conference, is that Gonzaga-type schools and University of Dayton schools, St. Louis University, schools like that can still build up a culture. And again, for the listeners right now, what's a culture? It's this body as a unison of the players that do all the little intangibles, the attention to detail, and they do it from a team standpoint. And as always, in the culture, what you want to do is have individual talent stand out, but within the framework of a team unity. And that's where it gets so interesting. And that's how those teams usually win close games. Sean, the better your culture is, the more close games you're successful. And that's in any sport. So again, in football, Sean, the pre-snap penalties, where you're in the red zone, so suddenly the lesser teams with discipline, there's always penalties. In basketball, you get early foul trouble because you have no technique as far as guarding somebody. So suddenly people make passive moves and you're still fouling them. And these are all things that the teams that have culture. And culture is also another word would be that they have high level of character. And that's why those teams are successful, and most times they overachieve. So the question is always is, how can we get back to that? The NIL will be is here forever. That's the first premise. But how can they make some adjustments to the rules that they have less transferring and more people going to school for the right reasons? And that's what to be educated. Again, I'm not naive, Sean. I am absolutely not. But you go to college to be educated. That's what they call it, Sean. Higher education. That's the reason why.
A good text came in on the text line, 877-353-0700, that I think does a good job of encapsulating what I was talking about and what I wanted to ask you about with respect to how professional teams, professional franchises, and the leagues themselves are going to handle this trend in college sports. 2492 says, it's true that as an adult you can go work at different places wherever you want, but there can be consequences for that too. As a hiring manager, when I see somebody that job hops year after year after year, I don't always call them for an interview because I figure they have no loyalty, no sense of commitment. And why would I want to employ them for a short time? Now, in the NBA and in the NFL, we're talking about drafting people, not interviewing them. But there is an interview portion to that as well. And a lot of it is just like, hey, how talented are you? Especially when we're talking about the elite, the very, very top guys. So this in the NFL draft probably applies more to like the third round and down picks than it does to the first round talents. And you'd have to tell me where that line is in the NBA. But pro franchises have to have some thoughts on this trend, on the guy who played at 4 schools in 4 years or 5 schools in 6 years or whatever. And it's not something that I think the grown-ups are talking about to these kids who have realistic hopes to play pro sports. Like, cool, man. Awesome. That's wonderful. And I'm glad you're getting money in college too. But the New England Patriots aren't calling you if you play at 5 different schools. Or the Boston Celtics don't want someone who bounced around every single year. Maybe they do, though. Maybe these franchises don't care. You tell me where the NBA sits at least.
No, they care. Absolutely. The better teams that usually win are highly competitive. They base a lot of things. One, it's always talent. In the NBA and the NFL, talent prevails. So within that talent, though, you have to have an element of character and an understanding about teamwork, an understanding about sometimes sacrificing your individual ability for the betterment of the team. And once you realize that there's something larger than myself as an elite athlete, that's when the main guys drive winning. Because then the lesser players in the group, they see that the talented scorers are trying to do all the little things that make teams win. And so it's one character, as far as it's 2 is character and 1 is talent. Now, drafting somebody, that's a factor. So, Sean, you said in the NFL, the third-round picks, now it's a little bit lesser talent and more character, and be specific as far as the position, as far as the need. In basketball, just generally speaking, most times it's the 20th pick and down.
Okay.
Meaning up to 20, 21. So the line is basically invisible at 20 and above. That's when you think about more a guy's more of a system player that we could put in our system as a defensive-minded wingman or a willing screener, high-intensity rebounder for our second unit. So 20 and above, that would be it.
We were talking about that with the NFL scouting combine that just finished this past weekend where, like, you've got Spencer Fano from the University of Utah, he's in that we're just going to draft the talent right here. And thankfully for whoever gets him, he's also a super high character guy. He loves the game of football. And I know teams are looking for that. When you get down where his teammate Caleb Lomu is projected to go, late first round, whatever, fit might feel a little bit more important. And we're talking about system fit. We're talking about scheme fit. But the character fit further down that draft, I think becomes something that teams have to look at because you're not an outlier anymore with your physical traits, right? If I were an NFL GM, I'm not pretending I'm above this. If I were an NFL GM and the guy that ran 4.25, but I thought was maybe going to take some work on a personality front, I would do the same thing the NFL does. I would draft that guy. Be like, I'll get my guys, I'll get my veterans, I'll get my coaches to get in touch with this kid and to figure out what he actually needs to where he's going to love the game of football. So I understand why the disconnect happens, but man, if you're not one of those guys, and we're talking about a college hoop stat where 22 players finished the same school they started at, which means hundreds and hundreds of them were kind of bouncing around and doing their thing and me first, you got to be really, really, really talented for a pro team to allow you to have that me first mentality.
Yes. So right now, Sean's also alluding to this year's 2026 draft, and the person's name is Darren Peterson, University of Kansas, meaning KU, and that he's an ultra-talented player. Absolutely. He's going to score probably 20 points per game in the NBA once he enters the league. The question is on what team, and there's some issues right now as far as issues as far as sitting out and not playing. Is it because he's actually hurt? Is it because of other issues? So that's why teams will do, including the Jazz, they'll do absolutely incredible intel about him and make a value judgment as far as taking him. But even if the intel is a little bit shaky as far as, well, he's not our type of guy, he'll be drafted either 1, 2, or 3. So because his talent level supersedes anything, and then you are hopeful being around other people with character that as the maturity index kicks in at age 21, 23, 24, and that there's very little, if at all, collateral damage to the internal group, that the talent level will suddenly emerge with also in cohesion with the maturity equals what? An elite player.
I have one more question on this that I'm going to save until after we take a quick break here. Gordy's with us, obviously, for the next 40-ish, 43 minutes or so. We're just getting started here on the Sean O'Connell Show. The Hot Lunch from Burger Fusion is coming next. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. We got Gordy Chiesa in studio with us right now here on ESPN 791 FM. Adrian Denny's going to join us for some Between the Pipes coming off a Mammoth win last night on the road. That's at 1. Gavin Peterson, Utah women's basketball coach, at 1:30. That's what you got for the rest of the show. So we were just talking about the potential disconnect that happens with these chronic transferring athletes and the leadership in the front office of a team, as the NBA, and we were also throwing the NFL in there, are trying to evaluate things that are, they don't show up on the measurables. You can't time somebody's loyalty, right? How good of a teammate is that? Well, you're going to try to assess that in interviews. You're going to talk to his former coaches. In the modern era, you got to talk to 4 or 5 different guys to get that sense, right? My question for you in the NBA, it's a very young man's league, and there's plenty of international players as well. But talking about the pipeline from NCAA basketball to NBA basketball, how big of a disconnect is there between the old players, the older generation player, the guys who are in their late 20s and early 30s, who never lived in this system? If they did go to college, they never lived in this system, and the young guys that are coming in? Because if you're a LeBron James, and he's obviously the elder statesman of the league as a whole and certainly his own team, if you're a LeBron James, you never did the college thing at all. You certainly didn't transfer around all over the place. Now, he had his own conversations in his NBA career about loyalty because of his decision to go to Miami, and then he came back to Cleveland and all that stuff. But not just him, Steph, whoever, these guys that are getting a little bit longer in the tooth in the NBA, how big of a disconnect is there once these young guys, these me-first guys, get to a locker room in the NBA?
A whole bunch. And the reason why is a generational lapse. So think about, say, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, LeBron James. LeBron's 41. Steph is 37. KD is 38 years old. And so these guys either played in college, LeBron did not, and now there's roughly minimum a 10-year difference as far as age group and, more importantly, life experiences. That's both on the court, on the football field, on the baseball diamond, versus the young fellas that are now on their team. And so, like anything else, that the older guys have to be able to connect with the younger guys, and the younger guys have to be willing to listen. And I don't mean like idolize the older guys, because growing up, that was so-and-so would say sports hero, or I'm trying to beat him out of his position and that I'm going to take over his spot on the team, etc. Well, it could be some sort of rivalry. I'm talking about just healthy in the locker room, as far as you respect your teammates and that you try to communicate. And so much is what? It's just listening to people, what they're saying, and then you assess if you think that they're right or wrong, or if you're in a position of a leadership, which most veteran players do, that they're going to guide the younger fellas about this is how we do it here on a winning team. And that's the catchword, winning team. On lesser teams, Sean, unfortunately, the younger guys have way too much of a voice, and that they influence everyone else. And most of the times, they really are ill-advised themselves how this whole thing works. And then that's what happens when you're a young fella and you're offensive-minded, and for some reason your team makes the playoffs. You get to the playoff situation, and you can't believe that suddenly, wait a second, this is different than a regular season, and you struggle because you weren't ready mentally and physically to play, even though the veteran players said to you that this is a whole different thing. You weren't listening. That's what Sean said, I called invisible earmuffs.
Oh.
Sean. Yeah, you'll see.
I've worn those a couple times, probably.
So a lot of times young people, again, I'm painting the portrait right now with one broad stroke. They're saying yes, nodding their head verbally, visually. However, they're not really listening. Invisible earmuffs.
Okay, we were talking about this stuff off air, and I was expressing my shock that the number of transfer players.
You mean your rant?
Was so high.
Okay.
And then you said, well, that's what we have this with one particular draft year in the NBA as well. You highlighted the 2018 draft as a class that doesn't have a lot of continuity for the guys that are now in their physical athletic primes. They're not where they started in the NBA.
Correct. So the 18 draft. So those players roughly right now are between 26 and 28 years young, including guys like Luka Doncic, Trae Young, players like that. Jaren Jackson, Jazz player right now. So those are the guys like that. So out of 60 guys that were drafted in June 2018, only one player remains on the original team that drafted them. And that is Mitchell Robinson of the New York Knicks, who's a big guy, that's a hustle player to his credit, and he just runs the floor and tries to get stick-back rebounds as a willing screener and a lob pass option. So the other 59 players are either on different teams out of the NBA or playing in Europe. So that's what happens as far as attrition, is that those high draft picks, those original teams, maybe signed them for the first contract as far as the extension, but in the second one, they did not. And that just shows you that character does matter. It does. Even though talent prevails, the intangibles. All of us in sports, we understand that it's not, besides the talent, you have to have these little things that every good team does and players do. Like, for example, we'll say, Sean, in football, all right? And you're a football person to the extraordinaire, all right? Sean, sometimes when the star running back stays in block coverage and they block for the quarterback, for the team, it's uplifting.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying every play. I'm not saying that. But every once in a while, right? And that shows everyone else that the star running back, he's one of us. In basketball, the ultimate is when the star player is willing to take a charge consistently when it's 3 against 1 in transition and he's backpedaling on defense and he steps up to the out-of-control driver and he might get bodily harmed, he steps in for a charge, and the whole team says, wait a second, if our guy that's averaging 29 points a game, he can do it, so can I. Well, I'm averaging only 11 points a game. If he can do it, so can I. And that's part of team building, chemistry, etc. These are all the intangibles that the winning teams have. Just described, for example, in the present tense, that's the Thunder. Those guys, all those guys play intangibles. And yesteryear, that was the Jazz for 20 years when the Jazz made the playoffs for 20 straight years in a row, which is hard to do. And they did it. And then also, let's give shout out to a Jazz friendly rival in a great way, the San Antonio Spurs. They've done it for 30 years, those guys. And that's why those teams usually win. And when Michael Jordan with the Bulls, when he was there, and Scottie Pippen, Sean, you can just watch when the Bulls played. Remember in yesteryear when Scottie Pippen would step in for a charge against Karl Malone in a playoff games and take it on the chest against Karl, where Karl's like a locomotive coming down in transition, and Pippen would step in. That's why teams overachieve, or some teams win championships.
So I want to highlight the players in that 2018 draft just so that we can – so you already mentioned this again, but it was off air. The number 1 overall pick in that 2018 draft, again, only one of these guys drafted in the first or second round is still with the franchise they started with in the NBA. DeAndre Ayton was the number 1 overall pick. Then it was Bagley. Luka went number 3. Now, obviously, that changed last year. So, and then Jaren Jackson Jr. He was the 4th overall pick. So until earlier this year, he was with his same team. That changed just now. Trae Young, same thing. He was number 5 pick, going to Atlanta. And then you got a bunch of people who are all in different spots. But this is the Colin Sexton draft. This is the SGA draft. This is when Michael Porter Jr. came into the league, Dante DiVincenzo. There's some really good players here, and not one of them, well, just one of them, is still with the same team that they started with.
It tells a story, Sean, about character and about fitting in, being part of a winning system, or I'm a star player and I can help the system by the way I play, but how I master the intangibles of all the little things. And that's why it's so important that you draft people, 1, absolutely based on talent level, and 2, if they have some level of character and that they're willing to sacrifice just 10% of their individuality for the betterment of the team. Usually speaking, Sean, those guys are scorers. So I always tell us the scorers is that we want you to score the ball. That's what you do best. But all we ask of you is to do it when you're out of team rhythm. So, example, if you just come down and just fire a jump shot because you're the star player and you feel like it, that means that 4 other players on your team on the floor at that time, they're being highly paid spectators. They're just watching. Oh, yeah, they might crash the boards and try to get an offensive rebound, but just generally speaking, they're flat-footed and they're not playing to their athletic or skill strength. So we tell the star player is that do the exact same shot, but at a team rhythm. First screen, first cut. Ball goes from one side to the second side to the third side. That's when you're, like any sport, you want to be able to operate in space. And that's when a guy can go one, we call that organized one-on-one, where we encourage you to do that so that everyone else touched that ball at least some of the time of the possessions and that our rebounders can carve out space and we can balance the floor defensively. It sounds so simple, but Sean, it gets cloudy in interpretation.
Gordy's hanging out with us for another half hour. The Jazz pick in 2018, by the way, in the first round, Grayson Allen, no longer with Utah Jazz, obviously. Still in the league, though. The hot lunch is usually here, right? We have a slight delay on the hot lunch, not because of Burger Fusion, but because our guy, DJ, got stuck in traffic. But listen to this. This is a high honor for me. Burger Fusion at Trolley Square, incredible menu. Everything I've tried on the menu so far has been excellent. Even things that I wouldn't probably order myself because I'm going with they have the peanut butter and jelly burger. I'm going with that, right? The roasted garlic Parmesan burger that they brought yesterday, that's the burger of the week. I'm hoping that goes on the menu permanently. These mozzarella squares and the Havarti fried pickles, everything has been excellent. Tallow fried, homemade fries, and chips. I've loved it all. And Mike is kind enough. I'm just being told this. Today, the special is something that apparently I have a vote on whether or not it goes permanently on the Burger Fusion menu. And it's not a burger, it's a hot dog. A burnt-end all-beef brisket sausage served on a bun like a hot dog with all the fixings, the toppings, and some more homemade fries. So that's what's headed here for the hot lunch. I just wanted to I'm going to talk about it when it gets here too. But the hot lunch is the end of hour number 1. And the hot lunch from Burger Fusion sounds like it's going to be a mouth-watering, delectable treat. And Gordy is always the best kind of guest because we offer him, not just a courtesy offer, we always offer him, hey, would you like to share this? And every time he says, no, I don't want to steal your food.
That's exactly right, Sean. I don't want to be part of ruin your parade. I don't.
You know what's funny?
But I'm envious, though. I'm getting the shakes right now thinking about this food, how good it is.
It's funny because we're so selfish with our food in the United States of America. It's like insulting in other countries if someone who's hosting you offers you food and you say no. But around here, we're glad. Oh, Gordy, would you like to try some of this lasagna? Would you like to try this burger? Would you like to try some of these fries? I'm offering it. I'm secretly hoping he's going to say no, and he does every single time. All right. We discussed this a little bit last week, but the end-of-season awards, the races for the end-of-season awards in the NBA right now are pretty interesting because there's certain guys who are very close to being ineligible. There's certain guys who have played themselves into those conversations that might not be traditionally candidates. We're going to get to some of that here with Gordy Chiesa next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show heading into hour 2 on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, welcome to hour number 2 here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Gordy Chiesa is still here with us, thankfully, because we got some postseason awards prognostication to talk about. I also want to catch you with this, blindside you with this. I saw this stat. The bottom teams in the NBA right now are collectively on all the tanking teams are on an 0-40 losing streak right now, obviously by design. But everyone that's racing to the bottom is racing there pretty effectively. The bottom teams in the NBA haven't won a game in 40 games. Pretty wild.
Yes, it is. And add to that, so right now, as we speak, here's just some of the teams. Nets have lost 9 games in a row. Jazz 6, Wizards 6, Pacers 6, Mavs 4. And the Kings have lost so many games, but they won a game the other day and they stopped their 15-game losing streak. So these teams, the players on the court, they do want to win. So they are playing hard. So the guys actually playing the game are playing hard and trying to win. But it's not really the first-string guys, and that's what makes it so interesting. So, for example, the Jazz played tonight in 76ers. They're banged up. They lost by 40 points last night to the Spurs. So that's yet in their world. That was last night. They played the Jazz tonight. Then the Jazz played Thursday night against the Wizards. So both teams are on a losing streak. Have lost 6 in a row. So Thursday night, someone has to win that game. So just by a fact of the matter. And so we'll find out who's going to be.
All right, let's get into this conversation about the postseason awards. We touched on it last week, talking about how close really, really good players, the best players in the league, some of them were to being ineligible because of the minimum games rule, as you have to play 65 games in order to qualify for these Defensive Player of the Year, All-NBA, MVP, all these things. And that changes the race a little bit. You have some ideas.
Yeah, very much. So quickly, here's the top 6 as far as the MVP race. And this is my opinion. All right, it's not just as how if I was voting, this is how I would do that. Remember, winning is important. So that most times these guys that I'm going to mention, they're on really winning teams, and these guys drive the winning. All right, number 6, as far as MVP candidate in the league, Jaylen Brown of the Celtics. Number 5, Luka Doncic of the Lakers. Number 4, Victor Wembanyama of the Spurs. Number 3, Cade Cunningham of the Pistons. Number 2, Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets, but he has right now 16 games missed. He misses one more game, he'll be ineligible. And remember, with Jokic, he's finished in the MVP battling either 1 or 2 for the last 5 consecutive years. He's been 1 or 2. And no one this year, if I was voting, I would vote Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's the reigning MVP again for this year to win it 2 times in a row. He missed 11 games, so he can't miss more than 6 games this year. Let's move on to the next possible race. Most Improved, which is really absolutely a fun award to get. The number 1 right now would be Jalen Johnson of the Hawks. Number 1, as far as him getting it. Behind it, slide 2, is Denny Avdia of the Portland Trailblazers. Number 3, Austin Reeves. Number 4, Keontae George of the Jazz. Number 4, he's had a great season as far as playing. Number 5, Jalen Duren of the Detroit Pistons. And number 6, former Jazzman, Nickeil Walker-Alexander. So again, the front runner, I would vote for Jalen Johnson of the Hawks. He's had a tremendous game. Rookie of the Year. Here we go. All right, Cooper Flagg. That guy's played very well for the Dallas Mavericks. However, I'm listing right now only 5 players that are worthy. Number 5 to be Rookie of the Year voting would be Derek Queen of the Pelicans. Number 4, Dylan Harper of the Spurs. Number 3, VJ Edgecombe of the Philadelphia 76ers, who's not playing tonight versus the Jazz. There's a side note. Number 2, Cooper Flagg. Number 1, Con Knippel, his Duke teammate. I would vote Con Knippel.
You like Con a little better than Cooper.
I do. As far as this award, as far as being the Rookie of the Year. All right, quickly.
Hold on, real quick. What gives Con the edge over Cooper? Because Cooper's the big headline name, obviously.
Yeah.
And that was all the controversy and the whatever. Well, maybe only controversy if you lived here in Salt Lake. But the point stands. Well, why Con over Cooper?
His team is winning right now. They're 500, which is absolutely, it seems so modest, but it's absolutely critical. And Tom Knippel, he's a tremendous player. He set the record history of basketball, the most three-point shots in a rookie season. He's a knockdown shooter, and he's the culture of the Hornets. It's so amazing. So we talk about, we mentioned earlier in a different segment about the veterans creating the atmosphere. This guy, as a 20-year-old rookie, he is really in the locker room. He's the maturity index presence, helping his teammates. So I would go him number 1, and Cooper Flagg, who's also played tremendous for the Mavericks, at number 2. All right, 6th man of the year. This is the guy that comes in the game, that is electric, that can score the ball and can also do so many things for his team. I'm saying that I'm going to list only 5 guys. Alex Caruso of the Thunder at number 5. Number 4, Isaiah Stewart of the Pistons. Number 3, Jaime Jaquez of the Miami Heat. Number 2, Naj Reid of the T-Wolves. Number 1, Keldon Johnson of the Spurs. Knockdown shooter off the bench. Coach of the Year. Number 5, Ime Udoka. Number 4, Darko Rajakovic from the Toronto Raptors. Done a tremendous job. Number 3, vastly underrated. He's on a star team. His team is banged up. He guided them right now to the second-best record in the East, Joe Mazzulla of the Boston Celtics. Number 2, Charles Lee of the Hornets. He's got them being highly competitive. And number 1, Mitch Johnson of the Spurs should be Coach of the Year. Quick side note, last year Coach of the Year was Kenny Atkinson of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Defensive Player of the Year. All right, here we go. Besides blocking shots, also part of it is stealing the ball, running back on defense, being a talker, etc. Number 6, Evan Mobley, who last year was Defensive Player of the Year. But I'm saying that these guys below him have played even better than him. Number 5, Amen Thompson of the Rockets. Steal the ball, ball contain. Number 4, Dyson Daniels of the Hawks. Number 3, one of the most underrated two-way players in the NBA. He plays for the Celtics, Derek White. Number 2, for the Thunder, Chet Holmgren at number 2. And the number 1 Defensive Player of the Year, we all love him, Victor Wembanyama. Because he can play. He changes every single shot in a game, then he can play. So these are the things that we talked about right now. And it could change. Certainly some of these things could change. And it's an honor for these people. Let's not forget, in jazz basketball, a long time ago, Karl Malone was 2-time MVP back in 1997 and 1999. So, yes, in jazz basketball, there was someone, the league MVP. Now, Chicago Bulls said, hey, it should have been Jordan, that Jordan could have made 8 straight awards as far as getting it. They gave it to Karl twice.
And Rudy got you a couple DPOYs.
Yes, he did. Rudy Gobert, absolutely, 3 times. Defensive Player of the Year with the Jazz.
Did Mark Eaton ever win DPOY?
They did, yes. Yeah, back in 1989. Yes. And Mark Eaton, it's hard to believe. One time he averaged 5 blocks per game.
It's wild.
Yeah, per game, Mark Eaton. And add to that, remember now, they didn't keep Defensive Player of the Year until the 1973-74 season. So, again, Bill Russell, Will Chamberlain, that group of people, no one knows how many awards those guys would have gotten. Remember, Bill Russell, trust me when I say this, when people would drive the lane, it was almost impossible to get a shot up over him or Will Chamberlain. Almost.
I'm anti-using artificial intelligence. I'm anti-AI in sports, but here's one place where I would like to see it used. Go back, find every available piece of film you can on guys like Wilt and Bill Russell, and apply modern stat making to the games that they played in, modern stat taking, I should say, because obviously we track things now that they never had tracked. We talked about this last week with the offensive rebounds versus defensive rebounds, all these things that were not delineated back in their day. Put on their tape, Let the computer watch it and say that was an offensive rebound and tell us what their modern-day stats would be.
I like it.
Okay.
I really do. I think it's great. And, Sean, there'll be some company out there will do that.
I hope so.
Remember, Sean, those grainy white films you think about? And the other day, I'm foolish. Gordon Shears, you're really foolish, Gordy. When you said to somebody the other day, I explained to him about black and white television, before color came in, and also back in the late 80s, with the different things you would, as far as how you would tape games and stuff, versus obviously didigital, to say the least. Yeah. They looked at me like I was a different planet. An emphasized planet. I was from Pluto, and they live on Earth. Did
you see the little argument that J.J. Redick and Luka had on the bench the other day?
I did, yeah.
It got blown up. They think out of proportion. Redick is saying this is relatively normal. They have a good relationship, etc. You know a lot more about this stuff than we do. What was your interpretation?
Absolutely. That is perfectly normal in a context on the bench. Probably what happened was that in the scouting report, they went over it. Was it 10 times or was it 1,000 times about doing a certain thing defensively? And probably Luka had amnesia 5 straight possessions during the game.
Why does he always have defensive amnesia?
Okay, I think that's a different discussion. And the reason why is because he's a star player scoring the ball, and he's absolutely great at it, and he is pass happy. However, to go deep in the playoffs, your star players have to be both sides of the ball, minimum in the fourth quarter, where they guard their position. Yeah, I can guard this guy myself. I need no help. So J.J. Redick and Luka had some words on the sideline. Trust me, that happens often to both players and coaches. What you want to do is that you want to be able to go back to that player in a very calm voice and try to explain why you're so, at that moment, you're mad at that player, and that we want you to try to work it out as far as that, so that doesn't linger on it, anything like that. Perfectly normal. Remember, I've coached a lot of guys that are volatile. Absolutely. It's part of it. So, again, your voice is choice, how you say things to people on your team, whether it's in the heat of the battle, whether it's in a quiet setting, or whether it's in a group dynamics. But your voice is choice. And maybe JJ at that moment, he had to raise his voice to get the attention of the star player.
Gordy, one of our listeners who's watching on the YouTube stream wants us to compliment you on your outfit today.
Oh, I like it. Thank you. I thank you. This outfit is definitely New York. Where it's what? The scarf.
You got a very East Coast style to you still.
I'm a New Yorker. I'm a Jersey boy. I lived in Utah for the last 37 years, but I bet you think I have a New York accent, Sean. I bet you think that, and I do. I've never lost it.
It never goes away.
I know, it's weird. I agree with you. No, I'm laughing at myself. Trust me.
I love it though.
No, trust me.
I'm glad we have it, because like if you talk like the rest of us, Gordy, it would be a little less interesting to hear you speak.
No, I mean,
a little bit.
Sean, I say sincerely, I'm at jazz game. People say to me, I go to the guy, I'll take one pretzel, and the guy goes next to me. Hey, you're I know who you are. I know that voice. Right.
Yeah.
I laugh. I go, hey, thanks a lot. Thanks. You want a
You're
pretzel?
Hey,
you want a pretzel?
There you go. Do you have a list today?
Yes, my list today. Remember, the Jazz played tonight in the city of brotherly love, all right, meaning Philadelphia. This is the greatest Philadelphia 76ers players, just 12. And we'll go through this list relatively quickly. But here's a history. In 1949, the 76ers didn't exist. The team was known as the Nationals, and they played in Syracuse, New York. In 1963, they moved from Syracuse to Philadelphia, and they were rebranded as the 76ers. And why the 76ers, Sean, is because it's after the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. Thus, they named the team the 76ers. The 76ers have won 2 titles in 1967 and 1983. Here we go. Top 12. He playing top 12 all-time 76ers. He's playing tonight. He's a young guy. He's got a great game. His future's in front of him. He's a potential Hall of Famer eventually. Tyrese Maxey. 6 with the season right now with the 76ers. 6 years with them. Age 25 already. 2 times All-Star. Number 11, Bobby Jones. 1983 champions. 4-time All-Star, Hall of Fame inductee, 2019. His nickname was Secretary of Defense. And here's, Sean, one thing about him. Bobby Jones in the Hall of Fame, all defensive player, never received a technical foul in his career. Never. Number 10, Dolph Schayes, 1973 Hall of Famer, 12-time All-Star. He retired in 1963. So for the young listeners, do you like Pau Gasol when he played in the NBA? That was Dolph Schayes. Number 9, MVP 2023, the 9th greatest ever 76er, future Hall of Famer, 10-year career with the 76ers, Joel Embiid. I know he's been hurt, including tonight, but here's the numbers. For his career with the 76ers, he averaging 27.6 points per game and 10.8 rebounds for 10 years. Number 8 all-time.
For 10 years.
10 years. Again, the narrative is that, oh, really, he is always hurt. You're right. I get it. You're right. But when he's healthy, he's great. Number 8 all-time 76er, Mo Cheeks. Tremendous player, leader, Hall of Fame inductee, 2018 with the 76ers, 11 seasons. He was a defensive player and a playmaker. Number 7, Hal Greer, 1982, Hall of Famer with the 76ers, 14 years with them. He was voted in the top 50 players of all time. All right, yet in this generation, hey, do you like Devin Booker? Right now, that was Hal Greer 35 years ago. Number 6, Billy Cunningham, Hall of Famer, 1986 inductee. With the 76ers, 9th season, he was an incredible 25 points a game scorer and rebounder, over 11 a game. Nickname was shown was, they used to call him the Kangaroo Kid because he could absolutely jump in traffic over people to get rebounds. Number 5, we all know him. He's always on television for the last 20 years, Hall of Famer, 2006 inductee, Charles Barkley, with the 76ers, 8 years. Number 4, he just passed away recently, within the last year, Hall of Fame inductee in 2001, Moses Malone, one of the all-time greatest ever rebounders and scorers in the NBA. Number 3, nickname was Dr. J. 1983 champions, Hall of Famer, 1993 inductee with the 76ers, 11th season, absolutely beloved, great all-around player. The number 2 greatest ever 76ers, his nickname was The Answer. Allen Iverson, with the 76ers, 12 seasons, Hall of Fame inductee in 2016. And you can make a discussion, Sean, pound for pound, one of the toughest guys ever in the NBA at 6'1", roughly 175 pounds. And the number 1 player in the history of the Philadelphia 76ers. We talked about him before, just about a minute ago, Sean and I. He changed the rules of the game because no one could guard him as far as in the lane. Wilt Chamberlain, scorer, rebounder, passer, shot blocker. So Wilt's the number 1 player in the history of the 76ers. He won a championship in 1967. And again, some of his records will never be broken. That's the all-time greatest ever, dozen 76ers.
Why is Wilt not more often included in the debate about who the greatest NBA player ever was? Is it just because we didn't get to see him? Is it because the modern basketball fan didn't watch him regularly and has no real understanding of how dominant he was?
Yeah, that's part of it. And also is that, the expression David versus Goliath?
Yeah.
That's him, his whole career. So everyone used to gang up on him because he was such a massive person. Again, for the young listeners, Wilt was 7'1", 275 with a waist of 34 inches. So he's like unbelievable. And he could run and jump. He ran track and he jumped a high jump at KU University. And he just was he was ahead of his times. I'll call him the Jimi Hendrix of professional basketball, ahead of his times.
I like that.
But again, Bill Russell was also ahead of his time, but Bill Russell had other great teammates around him all the time. Well, Wilt only had him some of the time. And Bill Russell was 6'9", about 240, wasn't like built like Wilt.
Sure.
And also
Superhero build on Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah,
Crazy.
part of it. So that's part of it. And again, so it's the great debate, and that's a wonderful thing to have. Debating is good, and a lot of times it's a generational bias. I try to be objective totally about the players this generation. This generation of players are absolutely unbelievable talented, and other generations were also, these guys are good, if not better.
That's Gordy Chiesa, brought to you by our friends at Aladdin Industries, your Utah Velux dealer. If you're looking for a skylight in your home, there's no other place than Aladdin Industries. Gordy, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out.
Thanks to Gordy for making it work on a Wednesday. We still have Adrian Denny coming in for Between the Pipes. Tomorrow you've got Utah women's basketball at exactly this time. In fact, BYU Houston is tipping off momentarily. Utah women's basketball will play the winner of that game. Coming up, we've got a daily dump, and there's some BYU player sound you have to hear because lying is against the honor code, AJ DeBonsa. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show Daily Dump coming at you. Brought to you by our friends over at Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Air. The truck with the duck now doesn't just take care of your plumbing and your drain cleaning, but also your HVAC, your vent cleaning. You're going to need the truck with the duck as the weather changes this spring. You got to get that tune-up done on the air conditioner, make sure it's clean, it's running. Make sure your filters are all replaced. valleyplumbing.com. Set your appointment in their online chat feature. All right, we got some sound from you that is, quite frankly, pretty ridiculous. But our guy DJ finally, I shouldn't say finally, he did his level best, and he got us the brand new experimental menu item at Burger Fusion. So what this is, it's in a burger patty right now, or it's in a burger bun, I should say, right now. It's got the slaw, the hot honey pickles, and a delightfully tangy barbecue sauce on it. Butterflied and laid out as if it might be disguised as a burger patty is some sausage, burnt end brisket sausage. Just the right amount of heat, a wonderful smoky flavor that stays in your mouth even after you swallow the bite. Absolutely spectacular piece of culinary achievement here by Burger Fusion. And look, this is effectively a hot dog that they put on a burger bun. Much better than the average hot dog, obviously. It's their first foray into the tubular meats, and I think a great success. I take it very seriously that Mike has given us the honor of being able to cast a vote on whether or not this should be part of the Burger Fusion menu. Here's the thing. When I'm talking about the Burger Fusion menu, I'm thinking about, can this hold up to the wasabi burger, which is so unique? Can this hold up to the roasted garlic parmesan burger? Excuse me. Can this hold up to everything else that I've tried? And the answer is absolutely yes. Mike, put it on the menu, baby. Let's go. Porter, you've got one in there. You're actually working. Have you had a chance to take a bite yet?
Yeah, it's good. The fries are good too.
Really good. The tallow, I didn't even know I needed all my fries to be done in tallow, but now when I don't have that, I'm going to be bothered, and I'm going to be like a fry snob.
May not surprise you coming from me, but beef tallow,
it's your thing.
Super, super like human cheat code. Cook with it. Put it on your face. You can use beef tallow for anything.
Okay.
It's quite versatile.
I don't know if the Sean O'Connell Show is ready to endorse the view that you could use it as lotion, but I have heard people say that. Doesn't clog your pores.
I'm gonna bring you some beef tallow.
You know,
processed.
You could actually get it now at like Costco sells beef tallow. That wasn't a thing even like a few months ago.
Yeah, but I'll bring you some like Utah raised
the good
mountain beef tallow.
For people who are not as familiar with Porter because of he's Spence's producer, and I assume most of you listen to Spence, but not everyone would, just because you listen to my show. Porter is he's a cowboy effectively, and therefore has access to all the eclectic mountain man and cowboy stuff that so many of us are fascinated with.
I'll say at the moment, I don't work with cows. Sometimes I'm hired off to, and that's the thing. You have to work with cows to be a cowboy. So I'll politely decline the title.
And that is why he's a real cowboy, because he won't take the title, even though he'll ride around on horse. What you think of and what I think of as a cowboy, he at least fits that bill. What cowboys think of as a cowboy, maybe not.
I'll get on a cow or a bull this summer, and we'll change that.
There we go. All right, we have AJ DeBonsa. Now this is from the Deseret Voices podcast. This is not like a post-game comment after getting blown out by Cincinnati. He might feel differently after last night, but this is AJ DeBonsa, number 1 player, number 2 player, number 3 player in the country. Let you decide, talking about his future, which all of us think is going to be headed to the NBA.
But do you care about going number 1? Do you want to go number 1?
Yeah.
Do you think you will?
Well, I might not leave.
What do you mean?
Like, I might not leave college.
Why not?
No, I just got to return to the season.
So you haven't made up your mind that you're going to go into the draft.
Nah, cause my mom wants me to graduate.
Really?
Yeah, so I might not leave, but I might leave. I don't know. The fans might get into my head, talk about 1 more year, maybe 3 more years. I don't know, but I'm gonna have to talk to my mom. So
your mom wants you to stay and get your degree.
She wants me to get my degree.
Yeah. Why does she think it's important that you get your degree?
Because as mom, she's thinking like post basketball, and God forbid if anything happens to me, I should always have a backup plan.
I think people would be shocked to hear that, though, because everybody's assuming you're going into the draft after this season.
I mean, yeah, they can assume. I ain't supposed to say anything.
AJ, I have really, really liked the way that you've handled this whole thing up until that comment. I think that even though he's a great player for your rival school, Utah fans, most of you will have to admit that he's handled this whole number 1 recruit in the country, one of the top players in the country, big-time NIL earner. He's handled it all with, relative grace and aplomb, in my opinion. That right there is cruel and unusual to the delusional BYU fan that wants to think that Provo is so special and that campus is so unique that someone would forgo being a top 3, top 5, top 1 perhaps pick in the upcoming NBA draft just to get a degree from Brigham Young University. Why must we do this, AJ, and anyone else who even pretends to believe this? What are we pretending for? Your mom wants you to get a degree? Well, guess what? When you're making $15 million on your NBA rookie pay scale, you can pay online tuition. You can have the professors fly to your dang house wherever you end up. And guess what? If the Jazz get you, they don't have to fly anywhere. You can just drive to Provo and take some classes. This is silly. AJ, don't do that. Because there are probably a tiny little percentage of BYU fans, the zoobiest of zoobs, who are like, yeah, he doesn't want to leave. It's so wonderful at BYU, he doesn't want to leave. Nobody stays, AJ, and you're not going to either. I might not leave. Yes, no, you're going to leave. We know you're going to leave. Don't put that evil on people.
You don't think he's in Happy Valley for 4 or 5 years? He's there to stay.
You know what would be the most insane thing ever? If I started the show today talking about how only 22 players finished where they started in college basketball, and 4 years from now, A.J. DeBonsa was that guy on senior night. The NBA is just waiting around like, what? Hello?
Never know.
A.J.?
Weirder things have happened in Provo.
Would Ryan Smith pay A.J. Moore to play for the Cougars or the Jazz? React. 877-353-0700. Where will he make more money? At BYU or in the NBA? I love the philosophy, the idea, the principle of saying I would like to speak with my mother and I would like to see what her priorities for me are in education and things like that.
You've seen the video of that, though, right?
Yeah, he's smiling.
He's almost laughing his ass off.
Laughing at his own self.
Like trying to keep
but that's what I mean. Like, why are you even speaking these sentences for the people who don't see the cheeky grin on your face or don't listen with context? I love the idea of getting a college degree, but it turns out you can actually get a college degree kind of whenever the bleep you want. You don't have to be 18 to 22 years old. My mom's worried about if something happens to me. AJ, you're going to be just fine. Your mom knows that. Smart lady, did a good job raising you. This is cruel. This is cruel to do to the BYU fans. Also, they're going to be over you pretty quickly because now they got this Bruce Branch III kid, 5-star basketball commit. Now, we talked about this as recently as yesterday. I'm like, what is going on with BYU? And again, you can ask that question today. They put a stinker on display against Cincinnati last night. What is wrong with BYU? Well, nothing in the recruiting department. Nothing in the NIL space, at least as it pertains to basketball. 5-star athlete Bruce Branch sat down with Malika Andrews and announced he was committing to play at Brigham Young University, and he could go anywhere he wanted to go. He chose Provo. He chose BYU. Now, there are plenty of people who are out there. It's not because they're the highest bidder. It's because it's a special place. And once again, Bruce Branch III mentioned something that is underrated, not talked about, deliberately ignored, especially by Utah fans. He wants to go play for Kevin Young. He mentioned it on ESPN in an interview with an NBA insider. Said, yeah, everyone I know is happy for me because I'm going to play for such a great coach. That is still Kevin Young's reputation right now. He's going to have to start winning at a higher clip if he's got these 5 stars coming in. But that's how he's thought of right now in those circles. And that, my friends, combined with NIL, is enough to get pretty much anyone to try out Utah, to try out the state of Utah, to try out Provo. Oh, I can go play for an NBA coach, and I can make really good money doing it. I got to be there for 6 months, 8 months. Cool. I'm in. Big thing. Congrats to BYU, I guess, for getting that one done. Wowza. That's the Daily Dump here on the Sean O'Connell Show. When you listen to the sound of A.J. DeBonsa, it is better to watch the video of A.J. DeBonsa because you can tell he's not being serious. Will the state of Utah ever make tax changes to help out recruiting? We'll talk about that next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792 on FM. Time to talk a little combat sports. Zach Partridge, Fierce Fighting Championships, swings by to discuss what's going on, not only in the national and international combat sports space, but also what's happening here locally with the world of boxing, MMA, etc. Zach Partridge, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right. I'm glad we get a chance to talk because these announcements, a couple of these announcements are, I don't know, a week or two old, but you and I have not yet discussed the recently announced foray by Jake Paul and MVP Promotions into the MMA space, where Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano are going to be fighting. Now, these two are like foundational pieces of the women's mixed martial arts picture, but Gina hasn't fought in 17 years. Ronda hasn't fought in a decade. And Gina's on the wrong side of 40. Ronda's creeping up on 40 here. Still, do they have the draw, the star power, the value? Are you going to watch it?
Honestly, I don't know. I guess it really just kind of depends what's going on that night. I don't like. We've seen this enough now, where they're kind of going for the Netflix show and the money grab thing. Now, while Ronda and Gina are both very legitimate fighters and were fantastic in their own right, 10, 15, 20 years ago, it doesn't do it for me. Let's just put it that way. There's so much good MMA going on, and there's so many good high-level fights that we're coming up on. I don't know if this one moves the needle for me to go and reactivate my Netflix subscription to make sure I can tune in.
That's fair, and I think that there's probably more than a few people who feel that way. We're also in the national MMA world. We're getting a lot of rumors about what's going on with the White House card. That, for people who don't know, the UFC is putting on a White House event, a big-time fight card on the White House lawn. It is being described as a one-off showcase that's not even designed to be profitable for the UFC, but just more of an opportunity to be on a big stage and have a ton of attention. And right now, there's a lot of scuttlebutt around what fights are actually going to be made, the potential return of John Jones, the potential return of GSP. Are you buying or selling the idea that we're going to get a bunch of legends fighting on this card?
I'm buying it. I think that President Trump has a lot of influence on this event and who's going to be on the card. Now, obviously, you need both parties, two fighters, to agree to fight each other. But I do think that President Trump has a wish list of guys that he would like to see on the card. And I think the UFC is going to do everything they can to oblige, because as just a fan of fights, it seems that President Trump, he's just a fan of fights. And he a lot of the guys that he enjoys seeing and wishes to see is a lot of the guys that other fight fans want to see. And if the whole point of this is to be a one-off, special, never done before, never done again event, you might get, you're probably going to get John Jones. You're probably going to get Conor McGregor. I've heard Jorge Masvidal's thrown his name of coming back for one more, or even Nate Diaz. I think we're going to get, at least 4 or 5 fights that could absolutely headline a card.
Well, if you're going to put it on the White House lawn, you got to do it different. You got to do it bigger. You got to do it better. So we'll see how that thing comes together. You have fights at one of the coolest venues I have ever seen in MMA. Once again this weekend, Masonic Temple, right in Salt Lake City, and our guy Mike Jones is at the top of this card. Tell me about what's coming up this weekend.
Yeah, this is our 10-year anniversary show, so this is a big deal for Fierce Fighting Championship. Super excited about it. Super excited to have Mike Jones main event this card against a guy that's honestly a bit of a legend in his own right. Most people, from the Utah area probably don't know who Tony Lopez is, who he's fighting from California. But, Sean, I'm sure you do. He fought your coach. He fought one of your teammates, Nick Rossborough, a couple of times, and he knocked out Ben Moa, my teammate, last time he came to Utah with a head kick, and he's this is his 100. He's had 100+ fights, so he's kind of coming in one more time to try and be the spoiler in this main event. And I think it's a ton of fun to bring in kind of some OGs of the MMA game to celebrate our 10-year anniversary show.
It's awesome. It actually kind of cracks me up. Guys like Tony, just the rules don't apply, right, to somebody like Tony Lopez. He shouldn't be fighting. He's too old. Well, he still beats people. You shouldn't fight 100 times. That's too crazy. He still fights. He's fought literally 100 times, and he still wins. It's wild to see what people like him have done, and there's only a few of them in the sport where they're kind of ageless. It doesn't really matter how much mileage there is on the tires. They just find a way to compete. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, he's 52 years old, like you said, and still active. When I reached out to him and offered him a fight, and I said, this is the date, the weight class I'm looking for, and he's a heavyweight too, by the way. So it's not like he's fighting guys that don't hit hard. Like he's consistently fighting top of the food chain, big, strong, hard-hitting guys, and he only has a handful of knockouts in over 100 fights at heavyweight. And like you said, he's made a career out of breaking all the rules and being successful at it with winning over 2/3 of his fights. He trains by himself in his garage. He doesn't show up with a corner. He doesn't really warm up. He kind of warms up in the first round of the fights. Yet he wins more than he loses. He's an interesting character, and he's been great to work with, honestly. So if you don't know who Tony Lopez is kind of like a movie character coming to spoil the show.
And this is a bit of a size mismatch for people who aren't fully aware. Mike Jones is considered by a lot of people, including myself, to be probably the best active fighter in Utah right now, or one of the very few best active fighters in Utah right now. Mike is really kind of a true middleweight, and he's old school. He doesn't care. He's like, just give me somebody to fight. So he's giving up about 5-6 inches of height in this one. He's going to give up a bunch of reach in this one. It's going to be a wild one, but what a cool main event for an anniversary show.
Yeah, I mean, it's I feel like it's perfect. So Mike's a little bit younger, but and like you said, more naturally fights at 185 at middleweight. So he's walking around weight is just barely in that heavyweight limit, 210, 220, where Tony's used to fighting, at 230, 240 and fighting guys all the way up to 265. So very interesting matchup. You're one of the old guys now, Sean, when you're in the room. You guys got all those tricks that the young guys got to look out for.
Well, thankfully, Tony will be coming in and taking on someone from Utah. We always like to see the Utah boys win, who he's coached by someone who's very much like Tony, and he's probably not going to be able to trick Mike Jones, but we'll see how it plays out. Yeah, how can people get tickets for this event?
FierceFightingChampionship.com. You just go to the event page it'll say tickets and pay-per-view. Go check out the tickets. When they ask for your promo code, type in code ESPN for a discount ticket. That way we know, that you heard us and followed it. But I mean, we have 3 title fights in the co-main event. We have 2 pro flyweights that are both here from Utah. That Chris Anderson's an undefeated flyweight, fighting Mauro Gutierrez up from Logan, who's one of the most super talented and active fighters between boxing, MMA, and other forms of combat competition out there. A couple amateur title fights. Going to be a lot of fun.
The Masonic Temple on March 7th. Doors will open at 4. Fights will start at 5. FierceFightingChampionship.com. Put in ESPN for the discount code and to let them know where you heard about it and the reason you got your tickets. Zach, thanks for your time. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate you. Have a good one.
That's Zach Partridge. Fierce Fighting Championship. Again, the Masonic Temple, just go. Just go so you can be inside the Masonic Temple and see how strange and historic and cool that old building is. It's a really great and intimate place to watch fights. Not a bad seat in the house. And I know that it's like kind of a cliche, but it's in this like grand amphitheater room, and the bleachers go darn near straight up. So even if you're in the very top, very back row, you're probably 30 feet from where the action is actually happening inside the cage, 40 feet maybe. It's a great venue.
We're talking about like the White House, apparently the pyramids of Giza.
That's right.
A fight event, which Rico Verhoeven fascinates me as a making the move over.
He fascinates me more in MMA than he does in boxing.
Me too.
I wish that we were getting his Rico Verhoeven, world championship kickboxer for the last decade, cleared out the heavyweight division of Glory, and now he's coming over to fight Alexander Usyk in a pro boxing bout at the Pyramids of Giza.
Right.
It takes away a huge part of his skill set. He's a massive kicker, and he can't kick in boxing. In MMA, he can't.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a challenge for him for sure. If he made the jump to MMA, I'd be like, look out, right, to the rest of the sport. In boxing, I kind of wonder what that looks like. But yeah, just all these cool venues, and of course, one here in Salt Lake, the Masonic Temple.
Kind of neat. All right, we go between the pipes. Adrian Denny is going to join us, and Gavin Peterson. As BYU and Houston are underway, Utah women's basketball will play the winner of that game. Between the pipes and talking some hockey next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, welcome to hour number 3 on the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in our Utah Mammoth insider, Adrian Denny, brought to you by Aladdin Industries and Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Adrian, welcome to the studio again. How are you?
Glad to be here, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Back in the win column, baby. What'd you think of the performance by the Utah Mammoth last night?
Thought it was solid. I thought it was a business-like performance. It's the game that they've had for the last 2 months, coming off a game where they don't play well, which both of those boxes were checked on Sunday against the Chicago Blackhawks, but 8-2 after a loss since December. Opening a trip, they've been strong going out on the road. Now 4 straight wins to start a multi-game road trip, 6-2 overall. But the big picture of it, OC, is, you lose that game like Chicago, you come out, you beat Washington, you're 14-6-1 since the calendar turned to 2026. So the big picture scope of it is what the Mammoth have been able to manage and stay in control of, right? 1 loss hasn't turned into 2 losses, turned into 3 losses. It's 1 loss has turned into a win 80% of the time over the last 2.5 months. They've lost 2 straight twice since early December. So that's the biggest thing, is the sample of work over the last 2.5 months has put them where they are. And I thought last night was an exclamation point that this team's a playoff team. This team's ready to make that next step. And I thought it was impressive to go into Washington, a team 2 points below the playoff line with a really good home record, and lead the game for almost 50 minutes.
Gunther scored a goal, and he's got more goals than he had all of last year with more than 20 games left to play.
And through the first 2-3 months of the year, his numbers were pretty on target of where he was last year, but it just didn't quite seem like it because he didn't have as many multi-goal games. There weren't as many games where he was the star. He was getting his goals, but he hadn't taken over a game like he did early last year with the multi-goal performances. But he's got that shot, and when you can get the puck to him, is Clayton Keller did last night. Head coach Andre Cherney shook up the lines a little bit, which I thought it might have come in the middle of the game Friday, but things went so well against Minnesota. But Cooley, Gunther, and McBain, that there just wasn't something clicking there when Cooley came back, and I think they noticed it Wednesday against Colorado. Okay, let's be in a position here to move some stuff around. Minnesota, that game went so well. Sunday was what it was, and then they came out, they put Schmaltz, Keller, and Gunther together, their top 3 scorers, and it got a goal in the first 10 minutes of the game. But what Clayton Keller did on that goal, it was a great breakout by the D-men, Sergachev and Dursey, both controlling the puck. They go to Keller in the neutral zone. He takes 1 hit as he's passing it to Schmaltz from Ryan Leonard. Schmaltz gives it back to Keller, who then takes a big hit from Tom Wilson, who hits as hard as anybody in the NHL, and got the puck to Gunther. So that's successful hockey when you're taking hits like that to make plays 2 on 1 goal, and to be able to get that to Gunther, who is going to score on it, was big for the Mammoth. So good to see Gunther get that 28th goal of the year, surpassing last year's total with 21 games left.
Special teams, the power play especially, clicking a little better than it was early. We've talked about this so many times already this season. Yeah. Like, hey, penalty kill's not particularly great right now. Power play's not even bearing the kind of fruit that you would hope that it would for a playoff team, for a team that's contending in the West. And in more recent days, they've performed better in those special teams.
6 power play goals in the last 6 games, 6 for the last 17, and I think they figured out why it wasn't working. Right before they went into the Olympic break, you could kind of start to see it picking up, and a successful power play is really just urgency. Zipping the puck around, finding your spots, finding your shots, shooting. If it doesn't go in, retrieve the puck and go back to work. Versus there was a lot of perimeter. They were controlling the offensive zone on the power play, but there just wasn't much going on. And for the Mammoth, things clicked a little, and sometimes it just takes, oh, this isn't working, is it? Maybe we go to what the coaches have been telling us this whole time, and here we are. And power plays are something, because you look at the worst power plays in the NHL, and at the bottom of it, you got the Colorado Avalanche, the Washington Capitals with Alexander Ovechkin. Utah's not as low as they were. They were 31st. The 6 for 17 stretch has bumped them up 5 spots in 6 games. So, but there's a few teams out there trying to figure out what's wrong with the power play. Teams that you wouldn't expect, like the Avs, Caps, and Utah, who was the top 10 team last year on the power play in the NHL.
Veggie has 29 wins now, which leads the NHL. Now, they're riding him hard, and we've got no indication that Coach Bear has any plans to do anything besides that. And you're getting down to the final 20 regular season games, and then we hope some playoff series, and attrition / fatigue, wear and tear can become more of an issue. Is there anything that needs to be done with Veggie in order to make this sustainable if they're going to be a playoff team?
The schedule right now is pretty favorable for a starting goalie who you want to play every night. The Mammoth, the rest of the way, only have 2 back-to-backs left, and one of them is next week at Chicago, at Minnesota on Monday and Tuesday, and then in April they play Carolina at home, and they go to Calgary on a Saturday, Sunday. So every other day, every couple of days, you're playing. Now that the schedule's kind of normalized a bit, you're good to go with him. And Vejmelka has told the coaches before, like, I could use a day. In November, he did say, look, I'm a little tired here, when Utah was all over the map and playing all those back-to-backs, and he did. But that game last night, he might have been the unsung story of the game. He stopped 23 of 25. It was the 12th time in his last 16 starts he's allowed 2 goals or less. Like, that's just a recipe for success when your goalie allows 2 goals or less in 75% of the games. And even more impressively last night, he didn't allow a 5-on-5 goal to Washington, who had scored the second most 5-on-5 goals in the league. Both goals came on the power play, which is you get back to special teams. Washington's special teams have struggled. They're probably due to normalize, like Utah's power play, and Utah's PK was in the top 10 in the first half of the season. It's not now, but against the team that scored the second most 5-on-5 goals in the NHL in Washington, didn't allow 1, and they were really bringing it. In that third period, he turned aside 12 shots, but as I was processing the game after and this morning, I'm like, gosh, Vejmelka was really, really good in that game. And he had the game against Colorado Wednesday. I've never been more wrong in anything I've ever said on the radio than on the show last week when you said, what's the biggest advantage, I think, coming back from the break? I said, well, Vejmelka, because he's been over practicing at the Olympics. He didn't play. He's been taking pucks. And then Wednesday night, he looked a little rusty. And we were talking with Andre Cherney after. He's like, yeah, he was at the Olympics, but he was the 3rd goalie. So he wasn't seeing a lot of shots in practice. And the practices are short. So he flies over to Italy. It's the 3rd goalie, which is standing around because there's only 2 nets. So I was wrong on that one, but he got it back going against Minnesota, and then everybody was terrible Sunday. And good response from literally every single person on the team last night, because every single person on the team was subpar, below average. What other nice things can we say about the game?
What do we excuse me, what do you expect from tomorrow's matchup against Philadelphia?
The Flyers are going for their 4th straight win. They're 4-1-2 in their last 7. They're 6 points below the playoff line. But they play a lot of low-scoring games. 5 of their last 6 games have seen 5 goals total or fewer. So, like 3-1 games, 3-2 games, and a shootout. They beat Toronto on Monday. Rick Tocchet is their head coach, and wherever he's gone, his teams play like that. Strong defensively at the expense of the offense. So that's how their games have gone. That's how the game was Tuesday in D.C. For the Mammoth and Capitals, even though Utah went into the Chicago game with 4 or more in 10 of 15. So they can put the puck in the net, but I think Philly has got their brand of game going, and we remember just over a month ago they had a 4-2 third period lead on the Mammoth before Nick Schmaltz took a puck away from a guy who had a wide open empty net and was just trying to get a little closer before he shot it, and that never happened. So you have that. Here's a fun fact for you, OC. How about the fact that the Mammoth are 3-0 all time in Pennsylvania and 6-0 all time in New York State? How about dominating that region? So I'm going to try and make it 4-0 in the Commonwealth of PA tomorrow.
There's a weird satisfaction that rises in my body when you give me those 2 stats.
I don't mind it either.
Because so often those are talked about as being the meaningful television markets, and that's where sports are more significant and things like that. So, oh, really? Why can't you beat this little upstart group from Utah then? New Yorkers, Pennsylvanians.
I agree.
I like that.
Don't mind it at all. Metropolitan Division for the Mammoth. 2 games left in the Eastern time zone for Utah. Thursday in Philly, Saturday in Columbus, and that means OC no more 5 o'clock starts.
That's nice.
So prime time the rest of the way.
Okay. Trade deadline approaches. There's a lot of comments. Speaking of New York, Vincent Trocheck seems to be the biggest name that there's some buzz around. Very hilarious anecdote, by the way, if people have not seen it, when he was apparently trying to prepare his young son, his 7-year-old son, for the possibility that he might be traded, and was, talking to the young kid about it. I guess the son, I'm paraphrasing, was just like, well, I've got a hockey team here. I haven't been traded, so he's not going. 7-year-old boy, he's staying with that.
That was hilarious.
Pretty awesome.
That was great. That's the mind and that's the brain of 7-year-old, as I've experienced, and I'm sure you have.
That I don't need to go. He's not the only name that we could see move, but we'll start at the top there. What do you think this trade market's going to look like?
I think the Mammoth have one of the deepest prospect systems. I think they have some untouchable prospects, and they've also got a boatload of draft picks. So they've got plenty that they can bring to the table. And if there's a deal that they want to get done, Bill Armstrong will be able to get it done with the way that he's strategically stockpiled draft picks and prospects here. Because you got a top 5 prospect pool in the NHL, but you have so many prospects, not all of them are going to be able to play in the NHL. But they're attractive pieces, which is, that the second best thing about having a prospect pool is you can dip into that. There's untouchable prospects to me. But you got lots of good prospects that lots of teams are going to like, that are going to put you over the top if you're going up against somebody and there's a player that you want, you'll be able to get the deal done.
When we talk about the ripple effects that certain trades, certain personnel moves have, right? Because I don't think that Mammoth are in this particular place yet, but teams like the Oilers or whoever might be, where you've flirted with ultimate success. You've gotten to a Stanley Cup final. You've been so close, and now you really got to make those little tweaks, and you might have to make tweaks specifically to win a Western Conference championship if you're Dallas, or you might have to make a tweak specifically to anticipate beating like the Florida Panthers if you're somebody like Edmonton. Will this trade deadline potentially force any of those types of conversations, any of those types of moves? Are those types of players maybe going to move?
You look at anything could happen, and those teams, like some teams have been better for their championship runs. Like Edmonton has made some really questionable decisions with their roster and with their salary cap, while teams like Tampa Bay and Florida have been really, really strategic to the point that Florida was able to re-sign their top 3 unrestricted free agents last year right after the Stanley Cup. And question was, can they keep 1 or 2 of them? And I think Bill Armstrong, he's kind of gone on the record, but I think he kind of laughs at some of these teams. And we talked about big name teams from Pennsylvania and New York, and in the NHL you got big time teams from Canada, and some of the things they do, you're just like, you sure you really want to do that? And that's why the Mammoth are in such a good spot, because they could have went bananas on July 1st, and they're like, I think we'll wait, and they can make a swing here. And if they make a blockbuster deal, it's going to be somebody that they want to be part of the long-term plan that's on a long-term extended contract, and it's going to be strategic. These guys are on the road right now, and I haven't heard, but I can guarantee that Bill and his staff are probably at the hotel in a conference room and haven't been seeing a whole lot of to this point on the trip, just because they're looking at every scenario, taking every call, making every call. And David Ludwig, the assistant GM, who is the salary cap czar, is popping everything into his spreadsheet to look at what's this mean for 5, 6, 7 years down the road.
Who else are you paying close attention to right now, especially in the West? Because there's some red-hot teams. There's some teams that are on shaky ground right now. Who is drawing your eye away from the Mammoth that obviously occupy a bunch of your time?
Over in the Pacific, question is, who's going to win the division? Who's the best team over there? You think Vegas, right? You think Edmonton, but Anaheim's been hot. Seattle's been good. And you look at that in anticipation of Utah staying in that first wild card spot. They could potentially have a better record than the Pacific Division champion, be it Vegas, Anaheim, or Edmonton. So that's one key importance for Utah of staying in that first wild card, is going to play the Pacific Division champion, and you might have a better record than they do. In the Central, Dallas has won 10 in a row. They've gotten hot. Avs look like they're back and rolling, beating LA and Anaheim in back-to-back nights this week. Minnesota might have been affected by the Quinn Hughes publicity tour. Did you hear about this? So the Team USA gets back from Italy. They start in Miami. They go to the White House. They disperse. Quinn Hughes and his 2 teammates, Matt Boldy and Brock Faber, fly to Colorado. Wild beat the Avs. Then they come here. Utah beats them. That was Friday night. Saturday, Quinn Hughes flew from the Twin Cities to New York to do Saturday Night Live. Flew back. Wild played St. Louis. The Blues won their first road game in several months on Sunday. And then Monday, Quinn Hughes flew back to New York City to be on the Tonight Show. So you could tell that was Might have affected things Friday. Definitely affected things Sunday. They eked out a win against Tampa Bay on Tuesday, and they're off today. So we'll see if the Wild, who've been kind of up and down coming out of the break, can get back and rolling. They'd won 6 straight games before the Mammoth snapped their winning streak on Friday.
That's Between the Pipes. Adrian Denny, our Utah Mammoth insider, is kind enough to join us every single week. Thanks for coming in, dude.
Thanks for having me, man. Always fun to catch up. Safe travels to you, and see you next week.
Aladdin Industries and Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling bring you Between the Pipes. Gavin Peterson, Utah women's basketball head coach, next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show continues here on ESPN 792.1 FM. It is one of the best times of the year in sports because we've got tournament basketball. Conference tournaments first, and then, of course, March Madness. Early registrations are open right now at ESPN700sports.com for our $1 million bracket challenge. Go get your brackets in. Play against me, against Porter, against all of our regular guests. Before we get there, though, of course, the conference tournaments. In fact, action underway right now in in Big 12 women's basketball tournament. Utah will be part of that, and their head coach, Gavin Peterson, joins us right now on the show. Coach, how are you?
Doing great. How are you, OC?
I'm doing all right. You're going to have to forgive me because there's going to be some cliches that we throw at you today. You got to be playing your best basketball at tournament time. It's something you hear everybody say all the time. How true is it, and how close to that do you think your team is?
You know, it is very true. You want to be peaking at the right time. We're coming off 2 great wins. Road win in Boulder against Colorado, a really good team that is on the verge of a quad 1, quad 2 victory for us. And then senior night against Arizona. So, going into this tournament with 2 games under our belt, really good to have. And now we got to just see and wait who we have to play, and let's go get after it.
So I know that the company line has to be put anybody in front of us will play. The possibility, though, that it could be another crack at the in-state rival, does it change the way that you and your team are watching this game, BYU and Houston?
I don't think it changes the way we watch it. We'll be prepared for whatever team wins. But let's make no mistake about it. We got beat twice this year. I think our kids are itching at the opportunity to get one more go at it. They're a really good team, but so are we. Neutral site floor this time of year, everything on the table. It's like high-stakes poker, man. Like, what else? Like, that's what you want. That's what you sign up for. So it'd be a very exciting time for, I think, both programs if we get to meet here in Kansas City.
So the neutral site thing, they're playing tournament basketball on this glass floor that they've already installed, right? What do you think of this as a coach? And obviously, I think the players are going to have to get used to it as well. I love it. I love the visual of it. I think it's going to play well for the course of postseason basketball and special events like this. But tell me what you think.
Yeah, I think it's a great, step forward, being very innovative, just thinking about a lot of the marketing, sponsorship, all the things that you can do in game while teams are in timeout, in between quarters, at halftime. Like, there's endless possibilities to it. I was told today when we shot around early this morning at about 6:50 a.m. that when teams make a three-pointer, the three-point line is going to just sparkle a little bit. So again, a lot of in-game cool features that I think are exciting for the game, and so it's cool that we get to be kind of the first conference to roll it out. So I'm pretty excited. I think you're right with the feel of it. The players will have to get used to it, but they're young; they can adapt pretty quickly.
Yeah, I just when I see this, and again, I'm on board with it. I'm reminded of all those videos people have of like Steph Curry going around and dribbling a basketball on every square inch of a floor trying to find dead spots and stuff. And I'm like, man, if you're that persnickety about what your surface is like, this might be a tough adjustment for you. I don't imagine that any of your gals are this way.
No, they are not. They'll complain about anything if it's slippery, especially after a turnover, right? It's never their fault. It's the ball, the floor, the shoe. And so I just get a chuckle every time because I probably was the same way as a player.
That's the stuff that in the film sessions you've got at the front of the meeting, right? Like the floor's not wet here. You just slipped.
Oh, absolutely. We have we have film weekly, and it's called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Kind of a Clint Eastwood reference, but the ugly is more the funny. So we have the good, the bad, the funny, and if any of those type of things happen, they definitely get highlighted, and we get a good chuckle out of it.
All right, back to real basketball here. Tell me what, in these last 2 wins, you think your team has done best.
I think we've moved the ball a lot better on the offensive end. The ball wasn't getting as sticky. We did a better job for most of the part taking care of the ball. There have been moments when, we'll go on a 4-possession stretch of either turning it over or not getting a good quality shot. And those have gotten a lot better over the last 2 games. So, I think that's what we continue to preach is we want to continue to move the ball, play with pace, play in space, and then just be hard to guard for our opponent. Like, don't be so predictable. If you beat somebody off the dribble, you draw rotation off the help defense, make the extra pass. And it's contagious. When you play unselfish basketball, it's very contagious. We say the ball finds energy, and if the ball finds energy, you make more of the shots than you're going to miss. So that, I think, has been the best over the last 2 games for us.
Gavin Peterson, Utah women's basketball head coach, is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show ahead of his team in Kansas City for Big 12 tournament play. It'll be the winner of BYU and Houston, and obviously here on the home of the Utes, we all know who we hope that is. But here comes another cliche for you, Coach.
I love it.
Tournament basketball, it's just different than the regular season. How?
That's a great question. I do see, over the course of many, many years as a fan, as a coach, you definitely have to rely on your guards. It's kind of a guards tournament because of, the ball in their hands, their shot-making ability from 3, setting the table for your bigs. So I feel it's different in that regard because you're going to have to string in, 3 to 4 games in order to get to the conference championship game or win a conference title. So you've got to be able to take care of the ball, be able to facilitate, score, and it's night after night after night. So that in and of itself is different. And we kind of went through it a few years ago down in Las Vegas where, we ran into a hot Washington State team and they ended up winning the conference tournament. So tournament time is different because you might not have to be the best team in the conference. You just have to be the hottest team. And sometimes all it takes is 1 game. So for us, we just got to go 1-0, see what we can get burning on that fire. And then we just want to try to keep riding that flame out all the way until Saturday. Are
there any adjustments that you can make in preparation and practice when it comes to, anticipating kind of guard dominant or even more guard dominant play in the tournaments?
Yeah, for us, it's just been our pick and roll coverages. You cannot rely on one just because the variety of players and opponents you're going to see. So you kind of got to make sure that all your defensive pick and roll coverages are in play, ready to go, because a lot of our league is that. They'll give the ball to their best player and get out of the way kind of and just set an on-ball screen and go to work. So we've got to be dialed in. We've got to be dialed in our adjustments as well. So that's something that we've been working on the last couple of days, and that's for all of our opponents, not just a possible first-round opponent for us.
How does being a bubble team for the NCAA tournament affect whatever happens for you, practice, game to game, in this Kansas City Big 12 tournament?
I think we've taken the approach of like, hey, we can't control any of that. What we can control is how we play, how we prepare. The will to win, it's got to be matched by the will to prepare, and that's what we're worried about, and that's all that we've been talking about. So, you can't control it. It is what it is. I'm just super proud of our program, our team, 19 wins on the year for a team that didn't return 1 starter, relying heavily on freshmen playing and some newcomers. So just extremely proud. We're not done yet. We can absolutely play our way into the tournament. So that's just the mindset. We're going to give it everything we got, take no possessions off, just play with that intensity for 40 minutes, and let the chips fall where they fall.
We had an opportunity to catch up with Maddie Wilkie before senior night and just have a conversation with her about, her relationship with you, with the team, being a transfer coming in, but spending some time here and, finishing out. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to, say what there is to say about someone who the Utah fans have really come to enjoy and to love. And obviously she's been a big part of this team.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to miss Maddie Wilkie. She is one of the toughest basketball players that I've gotten the privilege to coach. She's a coach's dream because she's already thinking the game probably before we install things, before we adjust things. So she's trying to keep up with our coaching staff in that regard. Also just such a great teammate, always looking out for her teammates. And, every program needs a kid like a Maddie Wilkie, and I'm just so thankful and appreciative she chose Utah. And then her time here at Utah, you'll never be able to take away her half-court heave, to beat the team down south last year on senior night. I mean, that legacy will live on. I'm going to eventually get that picture in my office, and it probably will never come down.
I don't know what the number is for women's basketball, but I saw a stat yesterday that I was like, this can't be real. This can't be true. And I know it is the landscape, and I know we've had so many conversations about the modern landscape of college basketball, but the number was there are 22 high major players. So, whatever, Power 4, Power 5, whatever you call it in hoops. Mm-hmm. 22 players that participated in senior night as having started and ended their career at the same school. I was like, wow. There has to be more than that. But then you look at every roster and you're like, well, maybe there's not. And again, I think it's slightly less prevalent, but only slightly less prevalent in women's hoops. And it is the world that you live in, and you're maximizing what you can in this world. But how stark, how crazy is that? If that stat is accurate, and I think it is.
Yeah.
Where are we in college hoops?
That is pretty crazy. It's, fortunately for us, we're kind of at that threshold now where, Maddie Wilkie was here for 3 years, right? So it almost felt like she started her career here. Lonnie White was here 2 years, left, one came back. So this past year, even though they might not have played their entire careers here, it did feel like they poured a lot into it. So it is interesting to hear that. And, I just hope that we at Utah can find a great balance between continuing to recruit high-level young kids, develop them, allow them growth on and off the floor, and allow them the opportunity to finish out their career here. At the same time, piece by piece, whatever needs may be needed each and every year. So it's a good balance, and I think we can do that here, and that's our goal. That's kind of our recruiting philosophy. So hopefully we're not celebrating kids, each and every year, and they've only been here 1 year at Utah. That's going to kind of dampen some of that senior night connection that our fans and our community have with those players. So easier said than done, but we're going to roll up our sleeves and try to get it done.
Coach, appreciate your time. I'll let you get back to the scout and the preparation and watching, and obviously we will be watching when your team takes the floor against the winner of this BYU versus Houston matchup. That'll be 12:30 tip, 12:15 pregame on Thursday, your Lady Utes. Coach, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, OC. Go Utes.
Crosstalk coming up on the Sean O'Connell Show as we wrap it up on a Wednesday. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show wrapping things up here. Final segment of the show, which is often crosstalk, is brought to you by our friends at Advanced Window Products. 801-850-9100 for $2,500 off 10 windows or more. Lifetime warranty on the windows. Manufactured, measured, installed, and warranted right here in Salt Lake City. No middleman. No, hey, that's an installer problem. That's a supplier problem. Advanced Windows stands by their product, by their service. They will take care of you for replacement windows, for window coverings. Give them a call. Tell them OC sent you. Mention ESPN 700, 801-850-9100 for $2,500 off 10 windows or more. Tournament watch right now. The Big 12 basketball tournament, women's basketball tournament in Kansas City is happening. BYU is up 42-38 on Houston. 4:41 left to play in the third. The winner of that game will take on Utah tomorrow. 12:30 tip right here on your home of the Utes, which means my show goes from 11 to about 12:15. So we'll keep it short, and then we'll send it over to Tyson Ewing. And you can watch the glass floor in person. The LED floor so far is getting mixed reviews. There's some criticism that the patterns they're putting on the floor, the design itself, which again is something that you can program in, which is so wild. You don't have to paint it. You just here's some ones and zeros, make it look like this. Apparently it's been hard to see the midcourt line in a couple scenarios. Also, we have a dead panel brewing, according to Hoops Muse on Twitter. You know what it looks like when you've got, I don't know, a digital sign on the front of your building and every once in a while, part of it doesn't work?
I have no idea about that.
Or maybe enough of it doesn't work that they just turn it off completely. So we've all seen these things. When you have a little excessive impact, it can damage the particular cells that project whatever light or image. So that might be something, a few kinks that have to be worked out as this women's tournament continues, and maybe the men's tournament will, they're using a separate floor. Same floor, separate floor. So we'll see how it plays the rest of the way. But my hope is 48-39 right now in favor of BYU. My hope is that it is BYU versus Utah in the women's game. And we did talk about this earlier on the show. If the men's tournament started today, meaning if all results hold fast, the first game, the 9 versus the 16 in the men's game, will be Utah and BYU.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All across the board.
If you're going to have an underwhelming season for the men, the thing that could redeem this thing to at least a measure of pride is that you knock BYU out of the Big 12 tournament in the first game and potentially make their case for an NCAA tournament. They immediately become a bubble team if they don't even make it to day 2 of their own conference tournament, the way that BYU's been playing lately. Now, a lot has to happen for that matchup to even be on slate for the men's tournament. But the women, as we talked about with Gavin Peterson, they fought tough against BYU in the first one. The second one kind of got away from them, honestly, at the Huntsman Center. That sucked.
Yeah.
But take a third crack at it. Women are a bubble team right now. BYU is also a little further down the bubble. Right now, bracketologists have Utah among the first 4 out, and then BYU among the next 4 out, which is always funny. But that's kind of where it stands right now. Also, we have an update on what the Majerus special is. The culinary delights at the Big 12 tournaments, you saw that they were doing these localized sort of cuisine. You know, there's green chili nachos and green chili tater tots and all this stuff. And I asked the question, well, what is a Rick Majerus special? And I was hoping people would keep the answers to that relatively PG on Twitter, and most of you did.
No. You can't do Majerus PG.
The Rick Majerus special on the Big 12 food menu, we now have, again, Hoops Muse hooking it up, we now have knowledge of the fact it's a pastrami burger.
Okay. It's
a very Utah thing. I'm okay with it being that.
I thought it was going to be like shower pizza or something.
It's not. It's a whole pizza you have to order while you're taking a shower, is the Majera special. We'll leave the anecdotal stories to a minimum on that. The Drive with Spence Checketts is coming up next. Spence and Duke are both in studio now, and let the antics ensue as we have both dogs in here for about 4 minutes a day.
I think they're starting to get a little more familiar with each other. I mean, at some point, Rocky's just going to – I'm terrified at some point what Rocky is probably going to do.
I'm very confident in telling you that Rocky's not going to do anything outside of playing loudly.
How much bigger is he going to get is the question.
I don't know.
I mean, that is a massive dog.
He's not that big.
Are you kidding?
I mean, he's big, but he's not that, like, he's pretty small for his breed, actually.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
A lot of the males, and I did this on purpose. I got one with a very small dam, a very small mother.
Oh, okay.
Because my wife was like, please don't get a 200-pound dog.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, okay.
And he behaves around the girls, right?
He's so sweet with my children.
That's huge. That's key.
That's all that really matters to me.
See, Duke thinks he's tougher than he is, and he'll never follow through with it. He'll growl at you, but then he'll just lick you. He is a very kind. You. Yeah, exactly. 100%. A lover.
Spence will growl at you, but then he's just going to lick you.
Then I'll give you a big hug. Then we're going to hug it out, and it's all love. Our dogs are perfect parallels of our personalities and our physical stature.
Yeah, well, Rocky's a lot more solid and muscular than I am these days.
You're pretty sturdy, Sean. You're pretty sturdy.
I ranted at the beginning of my show today about a stat.
Yeah. It blew me away. I didn't see that tweet.
22 high major Power 5 basketball conference players started where they are as freshmen and finished on senior night at their respective institutions in the same spot. 22 total in 5 conferences. There are only 5 in the Big 12 that have done that. Richie Saunders, shout out to you.
Yep. Yeah, I luckily was in my car right at 11. I'm like, I get to hear the start of Sean's show today. And that blew me away. I had no clue. I knew it was lower, obviously, than it has been historically speaking.
Sure.
Who's the tweet? Who's the gentleman? You remember?
Isaac something.
Okay.
I'll look it up for you.
But we just need to do away with senior night. There's no reason to even have it at this point. I mean, how many average Ute just athletics fans know who Don McHenry and James Okonkwo are? Anyone listening to our radio station does, because we talk a lot of Ute basketball.
Isaac _Trotter.
Okay.
CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I knew the number was low. I was shocked when you said that on air. And yeah, I mean, it's not just like, do the fans know who these players are? It's if the player's here for 6 months to cash checks, does he give a rip about like getting emotional on senior night when he's been here for a handful of months?
There's actually some really great comments underneath the tweet. Scott Van Pelt asked the question, I think is a good question. How many across the country have played at 4 different schools in 4 years? Or even more than 4 schools in 6 years, because we're still dealing with these COVID kids.
Yeah.
Right? And Isaac Trotter went and he looked it up. 19 high major guys who went straight 4 for 4. There was also some who went 6 schools in 6 years,
Jeez.
5 schools in 5 years. So, yeah, it's a different landscape, and we've been talking about this ad nauseum, and it's probably tired for some people like Spence. I knew it was a low number.
Yeah.
If you would have asked me before I saw that tweet, how many guys do you think started and finished? I would have been like, I don't know, a couple hundred at least.
Yeah.
And that's probably true in the lower divisions. But in the Big 10, the Big 12, the Big East, the ACC, the SEC had 1 player.
Yeah, that's wild. Real quick, are you unable to button a hat?
Have you seen this problem I'm having? Okay.
My gosh.
Thanks for calling. I have a giant head. So if I'm wearing a fitted hat, I have to wear an 8.
You wear an 8?
I can sometimes get away with like a 7 7/8.
That snapback is holding on for dear life, bro.
They're, depending on the brand of snapback, I'm either on the final 2, which is totally fine, Or in this case,
Yes.
unfortunately, lovely Christmas gift, by the way, and I thank you to my brother-in-law for getting me this.
What kind of hat is it?
It's a new era.
No, I mean the logo.
It's a Utah
It's a Mammoth hat. Nice. That's a good-looking hat.
I'm on literally the last one.
And not only are you
Holding
on the
on
last
for
one,
dear life.
exactly. That last one is doing a lot of
Look,
work, dude.
Spence, I'll demonstrate for you and all the people watching on YouTube. There's a structural integrity that is maintained. It goes straight across.
Okay.
When you're on at least two of the little nubs.
Okay.
As soon as you go down to one nub,
Yeah.
it just becomes a hinge.
Yeah. No,
It's just like, look at this thing.
I didn't realize it when we came in a segment. Then all of a sudden I'm like, that hat, it doesn't even fit you with the last one.
Yeah, it's bad.
Like that hat is earning its paycheck
I have
today,
a
dude.
gigantic dome.
No wonder you could take a shot.
I was going to say
It's
that's probably
terrible.
helpful in the ring, right?
Like one of my dad's favorite stories to tell about raising me. He used to travel for work. We lived in my house in Minnesota where I was born. It was just a typical split level home. So we had 3 stairs that went down from the main level into the garage.
Mm-hmm.
Concrete floor in the garage, like most garages,
Oh,
right?
dear.
One time when I was, I think 5, maybe 6 years old, my dad came home from a trip. We were excited to see him. My brother and I go running out to the garage. I trip off the top step, airborne, land head first on the concrete.
Ooh.
Huge goose egg jumps immediately, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So my dad, who's fresh from the airport, just gets in the car and drives me to the hospital to get my head x-rayed.
Yeah.
I'm a child. I'm a small child.
Mm-hmm.
Little chubby Sean.
Mm-hmm.
I do the whole x-ray thing. They come back and they say, we need to take another x-ray because we had him on the child setting and he has a thick skull like an adult.
And you're 5 years old.
And I was 5 years old. So they had to turn up the x-ray to make sure that they got a good picture of my giant child brain head skull.
And that was the first concussion.
I don't think I was concussed, honestly.
Do you have any idea how many? Because between playing football through college and then fighting for a living, you have to have a handful, yeah?
Well, it depends on the medical definition of a concussion. Is I've probably had thousands of them. The actual hey, are you concussed? I guess I got knocked unconscious all the way out twice.
Fighting or playing football?
Fighting.
Yeah.
You're asleep. You have no recollection of, you don't know what's happening around you. Three times. Sorry, three times.
Was it from a punch or kick, or were you
Yes,
choked
from a
out?
punch.
Okay.
Yeah, being choked out is different. It serves your brain the same way, but but even in those cases, even when I got knocked out, I didn't have post-concussion symptoms. I didn't have light sensitivity. I didn't have dizziness. I didn't have to be careful. I mean, I was careful, but I wasn't gingerly approaching the world. It was you wake up, you feel the embarrassment.
Yeah.
You keep asking the same question over and over for 2 hours, and then I was fine.
Interesting.
So my belief, and it's non-scientific, my belief is that there are some of us who are genetically predisposed to be able to handle cranial impact.
Okay.
And I don't know whether it's because of your physical makeup, your neck muscles, your skull thickness, whatever.
Yeah.
And then there are people who are the exact opposite, where they can be phenomenal athletes, but you flick them in the forehead and they go out.
Huh. Okay.
I don't know.
I would keep your mindset there because you seem like a very balanced person to me. You don't seem like somebody who is potentially in danger of losing their ish as a result of getting hit over and over and over. So I just keep your mind wherever your mind is. Just keep it there.
The thing is, we won't know if I had not abused my brain so aggressively. Maybe I would have had us on the moon again or cured cancer. Maybe I'm truly a genius who has now dumbed himself down to normal levels by getting repeated cranial impacts.
Interesting approach. Also, I would just kind of stick with the fact that you're doing okay and don't bemoan the fact that you're not some neuroscientist or something.
They're all weird anyway.
Yeah, they are, for sure. But yeah, back to the stats. Sorry, the hat dude was so distracting when I realized what was going on. If you're not watching on YouTube, log on right now and watch the hardest working hat in America trying to hang on to Sean's head. It is hilarious.
It's bad.
But I'm going to talk about this. We need to just do away with senior. at least in college basketball, because one of my favorite things about senior day, the college football, is you can tell how much it means to the players. And I would say even the ones that are only here for a year or two, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because you're here longer, right, through spring ball, and you kind of go through a whole thing. Basketball, A.J. DeBonsa will have lived in Provo for like 7.5 months.
He might not leave.
Stop it. It's so silly.
He might not leave. We played the sound. He seemed very genuine.
He was laughing when he said it, and he and his father already told BYU this is a one-year deal. He's not coming back. Shout out McKay Coppins. I hope the Deseret podcast got some attention or whatever, but he's not coming back.
Poll question for tomorrow. Is A.J. DeBonsa going to make more money at BYU next year than he would in the NBA?
There we go. And I'm quite sure his mother won't mind if he doesn't get his degree, if he simply maximizes his potential. Rocky got me.
Yeah. All right.
If he gets to his second contract, no one in the DeBonsa lineage for 100 years is ever going to have to work again. Let the kid play some basketball.
Here's the thing. I have a college degree.
Uh-huh.
I actually have an advanced college degree. I have a master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
It has yet to pay me what a second NBA contract or a first NBA contract would pay.
Now,
So,
yet is the key term.
Yet, eventually,
Yeah.
almost guaranteed.
Yeah. No, you work at a place
University
where
of
we
Utah
just
psych
we
undergrad.
are showered with cash for what we do. So just keep going.
right.
We actually had a debate, and I'll let you go. All of my college friends were together not too long ago. I think there are 15 of us. 0 of us are working in what we study in college.
Wow.
Not one of us.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's wild, isn't it?
That's yeah. It's kind of like you guys are the academic equivalent of that commercial they always play on college sports. 99% of us are going to go pro in something besides sports.
Yeah, exactly. 0% of us work in what we study. It's pretty wild.
90% of us are going to go professional in something besides accounting.
God bless those commercials. They're doing the best they can.
Stay tuned for The Drive. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.